Hello and welcome to episode 181 of the Imperial Truth podcast. My name's Greg. Joining me, as always, is Mr. Howard. Hello, Howard.
Hello, Greg. You all right?
Yeah, not bad, man. You?
Excellent. Yeah, it's pretty good. Getting a bit twitchy, as we were just saying, about getting a bit twitchy about upcoming events and not having nearly
let's
enough time
save
for that.
Let's save that
before we get
until we
into
talk
detail,
about
but yeah.
Element Games for
Oh,
all
yeah.
your toys and paints and airbrushes and brushes and board games and card games and
all the Legions Imperialis stuff.
Legions Imperialis stuff for however long GW keeps supplying it for until they redo it all your new female Custodes models, all your whatever you want, your new 500th issue White Dwarf, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Remember, you can get books from them as well. Black Library books, you get a discount on those as well. So Element Games, go through the link in the show notes to support the show. Gives us a little bit of a kickback. All you have to do is click that link through and order from them. The sports show, and we've also got. Don't forget to put your Element Crystal code in. It does add up.
It really does, actually. I'm always surprised by that.
And if you really want to support the show even more, because you're one of those people, we love you all, then Howard and my codes are on the show notes as well. But, cool. If you do that, massive thanks. If you don't worry. It's all good. Thank you anyway. So, yeah. Howard, what have you been up to?
Well, I did actually build the small thing was I built some Legions Imperialis artillery because I just love those kits. The little basilisks look superb. I was really waiting for those. But that was something I did on the sly because what I really need to be doing is focusing on getting stuff ready for this upcoming doubles event. And so I'm building Solar Auxilia.
Have we talked about that on the show?
No, don't think we have yet.
So start of July, June. We're going down east. Well, you're coming down to Eastbourne, my neck of the woods, and we're going to be attending the Barbarous doubles event.
Scouring of Barbarous, I believe.
Scouring of Barbarous, run by Tom from Merchants Princeton's podcast. I don't know if the other guys are involved with running it or not. It's a little. What we got to have 1,500 points each.
1,750.
Shoot. Okay,
1,750, buddy.
My list. I need to paint more. Oh no. Well, Russ is definitely having both his wolves then. I was tempted to knock them out of there. How much equipment can I buy for 250 points? Space Wolves.
It's a lot. It can be a lot.
Okay, maybe I'll have to do a tank or something. Oh, okay.
I've got tanks covered.
Yeah, maybe I'll do different tanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, another HQ. We'll do that for starters. So I could do that. Either way, we're going to work that one out. Oh shoot. Okay. So yeah, we got a 1,750 each doubles tournament to go to, and you're going to bring, or not tournament, campaign event, and you're going to bring the solar.
Yes, because there was the realization after sort of using this as a brilliant catalyst to look through the armies I had and thought, right, get yourself organized. I had this vision of having lots of small armies that could be played against each other. Brilliant. This is another one to revisit some of those, and I could maybe rush one or two of those and use bits I've already got and actually just finish those off. Lovely. Went through everything I've got, and none of them were the recommended, because you can take whatever you like, but certain forces were recommended for Barbarous, and I was like, I'd quite like to be one of the recommended things. I don't have any Dark Angels, no Space Wolves, no Raven Guard. Those are the recommended loyalists. I was like, we're a loyalist team. Well, that's a shame, but I am working on some solar, so now it's a catalyst for getting them done instead. But I'm suddenly realizing, oh dear, we're away on holiday for a week in May, and it's a bank holiday, isn't it? Where we've got family plans. It's my mother's birthday and my son's birthday. Oh my goodness! So yeah, rapidly building infantry and tanks to try and get those ready for that event. And need to get a practice game in. Anyway, enjoying having a deadline because it does certainly focus the mind. And I've just finished this morning before work. I finished another block of 20 las rifle guys, and I've got a handful of companions with some plasma guns that I printed off because trying to source weapons that look a reasonable size and are held in a reasonable way on these guys is a little bit tricky. The Cadian plastics are very good for that, but I can't get those in the time. So I'm going to try those out, and that should finish off the infantry. And then just a few tanks to do. How they work in the game, I have no idea. But we will
I
give that a
am
go.
just downloading the raw pack onto my computer right now. Found a link.
It's a nice pack. It's got quite a lot in it.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's hosted by the South Coast Titans, presented by the Merchant Princelings podcast. Oh yeah, 1750 per team, per player. Oh dear. Okay, so yeah, the whole point is it's telling the story of the Scare and the Barbarous. And there are, as you said, there are people who are allowed and who aren't allowed because it's that kind of narrative event. It's a specific narrative event, and yeah, the armies I was looking at, I was like, oh, cool. If it's loyalist, I'll bring custodies. Oh, no, they're not really allowed.
Yeah, exactly.
And if it's bad guys, I'll bring demons. Oh, no, they're not really allowed. So I was like, originally, I was going to be going with Jason Mullins, who's formerly of the various podcasts, and he was going to take Dark Angels, and I was going to take Space Wolves. But Jason's had to pull out, so I was like, call was put into Howard to muster a force. One of the nice things is you're allowed to take a Lord of War that's based on the overall points value. So to help me out, I'm taking Russ and his dogs, which run around as a unit by themselves. This might not be the most optimum choice, but I'm going to do it. Where are we?
There is nothing. I don't think there's anything particularly optimized about this solar in this particular environment. I think they're going to struggle.
Period. Yeah. They've got a small FAQ. Little, well, one's an errata, but hey, that's my own neuroses coming in there. But what we can, so only Lionel Johnson, Lehman Russ, and demon special characters may be taken. Oh, you can have demons, can't you? But I think we'd already decided to go loyalist before I knew that custodies weren't part of the
Custodies would have been easy. I've got some. Well, easier. Certainly, I've got a bunch of them ready to go.
Custodies and sisters and whatever. Yeah. So Custodies, Sisters of Silence, Assassins, and Night Households may not be taken at this event. And Armigers.
Night Household was the other one I was considering.
They can't be because Armigers are only available to Mechanicum players. So you then can't have Night Houses or have like the Allied Night. Just to make sure you definitely can't have Night Houses. So I thought, you know what, I've never used Russ in this edition, played against him. So he's a lot of points in one model. We can paint that up. Sorted. Easy, he says. So I've got my mate to go and build a load of my Space War characters for me. I'm not sure I've got the kind of model I want for a priest, actually. I'll have to look through my characters box. And then while we were we're talking about while we were at Salute. Yeah, the what's the paint company called?
There's a few of them.
Forge, the one I bought off.
Colour Forge is the spray cans.
Colour Forge, yes, spray can. They were doing a deal on spray cans, and they colour match GW paints. And I've always had that massive issue of how to paint my Heresy Space Wolves. So I just bought the Administratum Grey. And it was just like, well, it's a good colour for Space Wolves. Let's do that. Let's do a black undercoat. Let's do that. And I can get 90% of the model done in a spray can.
Yeah.
I'm fed up.
It does look good, actually. I mean, frankly, do that.
Yeah.
And that's a great, do that. That's going to do a lot of it. You could even just put a dry brush on them or a bit of weathering and you'd be there.
Yeah, I might. Weathering is tempting, actually. I'll have
weathering, I think. You put an oil wash, do that oil washing.
I'm not doing oil washing. I'm not having oils out on the table as well as everything else. No, too much hassle. I appreciate that people are going to go, it's no hassle, it's really easy. Like, it's more stuff. Like,
yeah,
I'm going to have to work on something. I don't know what it is, and it might not be done for this event. I just want them painted for this event on the
Yeah,
table.
same.
So yeah, it's a whole
Built is going to be an achievement.
very simple.
Yeah.
Originally, when it was 1500, going to be a foot slogging army. I say foot slogging. It's Space Wolf. There's no slogging involved. It's assault troops moving and running and being able to charge, and then other units moving and running and being able to charge, and Russ just running and being scary. But now I might have to put like a Scorpius in or something like that. Don't know. Have to think.
2 Scorpius, 240, pretty good.
Or different dreads. Nice and easy. Simples, isn't it? If I can get my maybe a Leviathan would eat up all those points and more.
Leviathan's a single hit, which maybe that's good, but I think they might be more expensive.
They are more expensive. Double Storm Cannon Leviathan is fun though. But yeah, who knows? We'll have a little play around. But yeah, looking forward to it. So and the baby's not going to be here, so we might even have a new bed for the baby before you arrive. So you might actually have a spare bed to sleep on, rather than some awkward arrangement in the hobby room. But we'll figure that out. But so the baby's not here, so I mean we're not going to go out wild. It's not going to be a proper Howard away weekend. I'm sorry, but
No, that's
there's
for the best, particularly after the last one. Oh dear.
no pressure on coming back sober. So you know, could be entertaining. It's a lovely venue actually. It's a really nice, relaxed place to play Warhammer. So
it looked good. It looked good from the way they've chosen well. I think by the looks of it.
Yeah, trying to find decent venues around here is always a bit tricky. So yeah, that's what you've been working on. I've been
That's the
building
focus.
and I'm going to put a call out here. This is where having a podcast hopefully comes. I've put this out on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter twice, Instagram twice, I think. I need anyone's like the most recent dwarf Ironbreaker models from Age of Sigmar / the Old World have some awesome shields, and I saw someone do this for Space Wolves. They're basically like little runic,
almost little bucklers.
Yeah, they're little bucklers for starters, but they've got this Celtic runic pattern on them which fit perfectly, and it's not. A lot of the dwarf shields have dwarf faces or very dwarf inspired stuff, and these aren't. Unfortunately, they're out of stock everywhere at the moment. You can't buy them, and they're rare as rocking horse doodah. But if you have some iron breakers laying around, or you want to make some iron drakes for your Age of Sigmar army, because apparently they're for your Old World army, apparently they're really good, then you will have 10 of these shields left over. If you have 10 left over, please send me 10, please. I will pay. And if you have friends who play dwarfs, please ask them, because
have you gone on any of the like dwarf Facebook groups?
no, I've gone on some trading ones. I'm joining more Facebook groups in the hobby, dwarf ones as well. I can imagine they're quite grumbly.
It's also probably not the best thing to go searching.
Plus, they also usually say these aren't places to trade. Go to Wargaming Trading, or Wargaming Trading's got a huge reach and various trading sites. But yeah, I had Stu at Miniature Realm Studio send me 10. Was it Stu? Yeah, it was Stu. Someone else is going to send me 5. Need to remind them that they said they were going to do that. That'd be amazing if they can do that. But yeah, who knows? Fingers crossed. If not, I'll have to find a temporary solution until they re-release them. But yeah, because I went to buy it, I was like, stuff it, I'll buy them and I'll sell the boxes as Iron Drakes, and at a slightly reduced price on eBay, and fine, cool. But you can't even buy them anywhere. So one of those things.
Yeah.
Get old G'd up, and their stock issues.
Yeah.
Hey ho. So yeah, that's what I've been building those, and I'm mixing up
Other
like
than
Mark
those
III.
shields, which I know the shields has been your primary focus, but how far are you into building what you have to take?
Well, the other thing is I need to finalise the list to know exactly because the assault squad has options, but they're limited because it's a regular squad. The two Space Wolf specific units, the Grey Slayers and Grey Stalkers, are you can have so many
Whatever.
choices of what they can be armed with. So I need to nail down exactly what I want because at the moment I've got like 3 power fists in each squad. And some power lances. I also need to work out what I'm doing on power lances as well. I've got some mate bringing me some custodian lances that I might be able to chop up, but I'm thinking about looking maybe at 3D printed if I can find a decent 3D print that I like, because I like power lances. I think they're quite cool. So yeah, I also need to like finalize that, and then I dug out my my Legion Grayslayers upgrade packs, which I had 2 of, and I had some old command squad packs and things as well. And I'm burning through all the cool options already. I've got a just pile of plastic bits from some Space Wolf stuff as well out. So I'm like doing some of it's taking a little bit longer because I'm like, oh, because of the way they do the hands now, cut this handle off this gun, cut this hand off at the wrist of this arm, then get this hand to cut off the gun to put onto the other gun to then put onto the wrist, stuff like that.
It sounds like real speedy army
Yeah, and I'm
collecting stuff.
slow as it is,
Individually crafting
yeah,
heroes for the Legion.
a couple of dudes sat here without weapon arms in. I mean, the one good thing is I have got some of those Grey Slayer packs come with some Fenrisian axes, because I still do have some models with Fenrisian axes, so I need to get them glued on and stuff. Yeah, it's slow, and then just trying to make sure I don't go OTT with all the Space Wolf stuff. Be easy to make it too much, and then have also to run out of bits. So some squads look really Space Wolfy, and then some don't, which is not necessarily an issue because you've got Terran Marines who don't show it off so much. But trying to make sure I put enough helmets in squads and things like that. Yeah, it's an interesting one for sure.
So you're well into it, or you've still got a way to go?
Yeah.
The second one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've
seen 3 models.
I've got more
You've
than
sent
3 done.
photos of.
I haven't got a squad built yet. I've got each of the squads started.
Excellent.
But yeah, it's right. There's bank holiday weekend coming up, and I'm away for the whole weekend. So that's.
This is the problem. This is what I've suddenly realised when I looked at it. It's like, oh
Yeah.
And I really do want to have at least one game beforehand just to remember. So it's just a bit quicker to remember it rather than that first game just being a sacrificial game.
And I got halfway through box of Assault Marines, and then not sure if I clipped out one of the leg pieces or it just wasn't on the sprue.
Oh,
So
no, that's annoying.
I've got one model that can't be built.
Oh, that's frustrating when that happens.
I mean, again, luckily with Heresy, you're not built into squads of 5 or 10, so it's not so bad having one model missing. But yeah, I've got plenty to do. The one frustrating thing about the new marks of armor, is I've got the chest pieces and stuff from the old Grey Slayers upgrades and all that, and I'm not going to saw a model in half to fit one on.
Because you need to saw it in half reasonably neatly as well. Yeah, that has.
I mean, I might be able to save them for characters and some things like that, but yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting one.
I have seen people do it. It does look good.
Oh
but
yeah,
it's a ton of work.
Yeah, and one mistake and you've screwed it up. And also the recesses for the head, for the neck, quite a bit bigger on these models than they are on some of the older models. So some of the particularly the bearded heads, just you can't put them on without building up a lot, and then it's danger of it looking off center and looking a bit weird. So This was all cool. I've got shed loads of heads.
It's all workable. It's cool to have the options, but yeah, as you said,
Yeah, I just don't
it's
have
not
that
as
skill set.
straightforward as some of it looks like. Yeah.
No. So, yeah, we're getting there. So, yeah, I need to 250 points. I don't really. A Contemptor would fit, I suppose.
Oh, Contemptor easily.
No, as in the style of what I was going
Oh,
for.
thematically.
What I would love is some Tartarus, but I don't want to. I don't want to put time into Tartarus when hopefully they will upscale them at some point.
That's way off, I would have thought, of them doing that.
Yeah, but it's how much effort do I put in? You know, maybe I do. Maybe I just chuck a load of Tartarus in because they can run as well. So
yeah,
they can run
that
and charge.
seems quite thematic.
Yeah, maybe I'll do Terminators. I'll have a little look, try and dig. I don't find them somewhere because we
Is that a
done lots
box?
of tidying up.
Would that be 240 points? What's that? It wouldn't be 10 with power fists and things.
I can make alterations. You don't need all the power fists. You need a few
No.
Thunderhammers and some to just absorb the wounds. They need to stay cheap.
What would you reckon then? So aim for 10?
Maybe, I don't know. Who knows?
I can't remember how many points.
Yeah, not off the top of my head. I've got.
No.
I can take a mod out here and there on these units as well. So, I mean, I could also drop the 2 hounds for Russ, and then he can join a squad. Because with the hounds he can't, which opens him up a little bit potentially, but also means I've just got a different threat. It can be in a different part of the board. So
I realised to take or to actually make sense with the way I've taken the tanks, the Lehman Russes, with this, you take them in a squadron,
right, yeah,
which means whatever they look at will die.
Yep. But if one decent weapon squad looks at them, they're dead.
They will also die. Yes.
So
whatever they look at they will kill. But that also means they're all firing at one thing, which is not something I'm used to with the way these sort of works. I was like, should I be doing it in multiples?
Someone was putting the question out the other day, actually on the Merchant Princelings Discord. It was like, okay, so what would you do? You've got 10 melter guns in a squad, and there's a Leviathan in front of you. Do you fire it, take the Leviathan down and wear the shot, or do you attempt to do the other shooting first, to draw out a reaction and all that kind of thing? And sometimes it's a case of lining your russes up to shoot at the thing that you know can shoot back and hurt them, and then doing every single other thing in your army, and then the opponent going, you can have that one, you can have that one, you can have that one, because they're saving up. And then when you get to russes, you don't shoot the thing that's going to kill you, you shoot something else, because you know you're going to lose the model. And when, with russes it's a bit different because you can't reaction with the big guns, but particularly with a heavy support, sometimes it's not worth shooting the thing you want to kill. Because you can shoot something else, and then you can use your reaction to shoot the thing that's going to want to kill you, that you want to kill. There is a game there that people don't always play particularly well.
Absolutely, it just been. I haven't got. I thought I wouldn't have that many models because I put the Dracosans in, whatever, which are famously points inefficient, shall we say? But I think they look cool, and that offsets the fact I'm taking some Vanquishers, which seem to be kind of quite an effective choice. So I want to try and balance that out a bit with a less effective choice on the other side.
Stuff
so
like
I am
your solar,
around.
mate. You can just take more effective choices. It's not a problem.
Yeah, exactly. It's solar, so yeah, who cares? Seen a lot of people talking about rapiers in the solar list. Both solar rapiers and solar list are pretty handy. Yeah, I haven't got any, so that won't be a thing. But I'm doing 3 Vanquishers, a command tank to boost them and have a shield and stuff, and 3 the Dracosan transports with 2 20-man las rifle squads and a 7-man, I think it is. No, 8-man command section with plasma guns. I think that's it. That's all you can get in 17.
Objective scoring units there, yeah.
2.
And then the Dracosans work as cover for the Russ.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. just block things off.
Yeah, and that's the way. Cool. Yeah.
And a plasma squad that's going to jump out and die to boulder fire.
We will. Again, prime example of holding them back and using them as a to hold on to reaction sometimes, so they don't shoot the stuff you actually want them to shoot. But yeah, what we'll do is we'll talk about that event anyway. So it's right at the start of June, so it won't be on that month. Probably it'll be, unless we'll see, unless we delay it a bit. But it might be the month after. But we'll chat about the event once we've done it. And that's been the focus of your heresy, is it?
Entirely, yes.
Cool.
With the exception of that one box of the basilisks.
Nice.
Which are a really lovely little kit, actually. I said it before, but they just go together really easily. And it was just a nice little thing to do. And they look cool. Yeah, they've done a good job with those. Yours has presumably all been that preparation as well.
Yeah, it needs to be really trying to find the time to sit down and then the missus comes in and goes, "We need to organise this room," and I'm like, "Oh, yeah, it's going to take a while," and I could be building stuff. Hopefully, I can come home on a couple of lunch breaks this week and get some more work done. But again, yeah, I'm going to have to sit down and actually nail down the list. I think is a big factor in that. Hey ho, it's all part of the
to
fun.
submit lists?
No.
No. Okay.
No, but I just need to get mine sorted so I know what I'm building. I think. Wonderful. Anything else been going on?
That covers all the hobby.
No. All the hobby. Slightly off topic, but I have to talk about a book. Anyone who listens to the Independent Characters will have heard of this book. It is called Dungeon Crawler Carl. It's a series. And the bloke writes quite quickly as well, which is quite nice, because it's only like 4 years since he started the series, and it's silly. So on the Independent Characters, Carl, the only reason he read the book is because it's about a bloke called Carl, and he would describe it as a silly, fun book. I think it's a bit more than that. It is silly, but it is fun, and it's quite well done. And basically, it's the end of the world, and this guy gets shoved into a D&D style, level by level dungeon crawl that's part of a bigger thing. And he goes in there with his ex-girlfriend's cat, and the first thing that happens is the cat is given sentience by the game, so the cat can talk to him and stuff. And of course, it's a Persian cat that is put into competitions. And it's called Princess Donut, and has all everything you'd expect from a Persian competition winning cat called Princess Donut. And it feels a little bit like Harry Dresden. It's not the same as Harry Dresden, but to me there's a similar feel to the way the story moves. And that small, just the feel as you're reading it that it's like Dresden, and that's about it. But it's super fun, and I've done the first 2 books in 3 work days. So,
how many books are there?
There's 6 at the moment, I think. 7 should be due out. I think there was 8 months between book 5 and 6, something like that. So
they are. They're quick then.
Yeah.
But these are full novels.
Yeah. It's I listen on speed and a half on Audible, and it was just over 7 hours for the second book, slightly smaller than the first book. And the first book covered. I think book 7 takes him halfway down the levels or something like that. But there's other story going on, so it's not like it's just this one storyline. There is more stuff. Immediately you're reading it going, well, something's going to happen with them later on, and then you don't hear anything about them for a book, and you're like, oh, cool. But yeah, I'll particularly if you've got a free trial or whatever, definitely worth an audio credit. Absolutely loved it. So,
good recommendation. Yeah. I'm working my way back through the Gaunt's Ghosts set.
Oh, cool.
I'm not a million miles away from finishing that off. So Might have to give that a go, particularly as it sounds genuinely funny.
There are some genuine laugh out loud moments, I think. So yeah, it's never going to
That's
win
pretty
any
good.
literary prizes, but who cares?
Well, that's not. Yeah, it's not necessarily what one goes in for.
No,
Cool
exactly.
recommendation.
Awesome. So let's take a break then. Let's come back and talk about what's been happening in the heresy. Okie dokie. So we left off just before Horace Axelman was actually shown off.
Yes,
Steve, what do you think?
yes. I quite liked it actually. I was quite excited to see what they did with him. I I don't know if I was expecting more of the sword, given it's quite a
I
famous thing.
think
I
some
think they
other people
absolutely.
were.
I don't know what it was about the sword. I need to see it in the hand. I think his armor looks brilliant. I think they nailed his face as well. That
Nailed it to
that
his
look.
face.
Well, see what they did there.
Hey.
I thought that was the paint job's really good as well.
Mm.
I had sort of forgotten that he had a shield. um, Obviously, I saw it in the rules and there, but I'd forgotten that he's portrayed in that way. I've
That's
always
an
just
interesting
saw him
one.
as just a swordsman rather
Yeah,
than a sword and shield. And the shield is it's a chunky piece.
it's a
It's a
brutal,
yeah
yeah, brutalistic kind of very functional. We
yeah
talked about the shield, the rules of the shield giving a lesser armor save.
yes
When you read through the actual rules, it's a bit weird in that I think the shield might become a piece of equipment at some point, generically, rather than him only, because it's got a name, hasn't it? It's a certain type of
mm,
shield.
yes
And the wording suggests that it could be the first time a save is made. So it could be that it works alongside his Iron Halo. But it's one of those ones that
mm,
probably could do with a clarification on how they intended it to work, or how they intend it to work going forward, should I say.
mm,
Because intentions aren't always a solid thing. So yeah, there's something to talk about with your opponent, but basically it says when a save is made, I think. And it's not like
mm.
with the shield, it's just when this model makes a save, something like that, that you can bounce the hit back.
Oh,
But it's
okay.
such a minimal benefit anyways, like
Mm.
whatever. Let them have it. One
I
strength
think
4 AP dash hit or something. Like
yeah, it's not a lot, is it? Particularly not the sort of things he's going to be facing. The I think the direction they've taken the Sons of Horus characters is really cool. I think that it's got a very ornate, but a very particular kind of ornate. It's an interesting mix of ornate and brutal, which
yeah.
you don't typically see in the models. And I think it's quite an interesting design direction. I mean, to see sort of filigree
It's
integrated with those squared studs,
yeah.
it's a sort of thing that could look really uncomfortable, and I quite like it.
It's cool. I mean, I think for me, I'm not saying it's wrong or anything like that, but I'm looking at the amount of the extra gold and the extra, and it's cool, it's fine. I haven't got a problem with it, but I almost think maybe if they took a little bit away on the arms and legs, like the center of the model, like, and I like
Mm,
the spikes on the shoulder pads, but maybe once you get to like the greaves, and then
mm.
uh, the extremities of it, maybe reduce it a little bit more, but whatever. Cool. It is what it is. That is a brutal
I think
helmet. I
it's
don't
the
know if I'd put that on Horus. I think I might swap that, use that somewhere else.
oh yeah yeah the no like, particularly as this bear head is quite so iconic.
Mm,
It is the photo I'm looking at, which is the photo on the article. The shield is the tricky one to me.
yeah.
It's such an object there, and it's got a particular style, and I happen to
Really?
like the various shield designs that they have out. Anyways,
Yeah.
utilitarian pieces. Obviously, this is supposed to be a particular type and a particularly special type. But Yeah, he's cool. I like him.
I mean, that the main section of it, you could easily see being used, and then swapping arms out for other things, swapping swords out, and what have you. There's a lot to do with
Morn
that.
at all is not what I expected.
Yeah,
I don't
it's
hate
quite
it, but
brutal.
it's just not what I expected.
Yeah. Hey, all
Mm.
good. What else did we get? We got little termites.
Really surprised by those
Tiny,
when they
tiny,
came
tiny
along,
termites.
and they are. I always wanted some when Epic came around the first time.
Sure.
I thought those on the little transporters, and you got the ones that were part deployed, and then you got the ones that actually had them emerging as well. I just thought they were fantastic, and I think the chance to sort of revisit that with these, yeah, looking
And as
forward to these.
always, yeah, as always, when you get plastics stuff for legions, like the hope is then like, well, you've
Mm.
redesigned them in plastic. Like the basis is there for a larger scale model now, which would bring the price down considerably. And maybe,
Particularly for something like this, yeah.
yeah, I mean, you do see occasionally the person's bought one drill, cut it in half diagonally, and it,
Mm-hmm.
you know, to get the most out of the money, and you're like, yeah, fair play. Like, I don't blame you for doing
I've
that.
built one of these um, in resin,
Sure.
and it is a pit that drill head. Even though it's a contemporary resin kit, so it's not horrendous, but it's still a project. Doing that in plastic is different ball game.
Yeah. Where's the? Because we're getting that you may have registered. The rules for the termite aren't available in
Yeah,
either the main rulebook or the Great Slaughter. Hopefully, you can put two and two together here.
that
So
made
it
me
won't
laugh.
be
I
long, will
enjoyed
it?
that.
Won't be long.
I thought it was an odd thing for them to say, given that they'd
Well, I
said
just
with
think
the
they
shadow
know
sword.
that they know they'll get that question. Well, there's no rules for it.
Yeah, but
I
I just thought it was a bit odd to put it there. But they've said with the shadow sword, it's from an upcoming expansion.
never hurts to reiterate that
Fair.
kind of
Oh
stuff.
no, I agree.
I
No, I agree with that. But I'm surprised they didn't use the same phrase. It
oh
made
well,
me
no.
laugh that they'd use it. I
Oh,
thought they'd just say the same thing to say, and the rules for this, the rules for the termite will be in an upcoming expansion. Just repeat what
there
you said.
is
To say, I hope you put two and two together was
nah. That's I
made me
think that's
laugh.
just a little bit. Yeah, the little like Warhammer community, depending on who's writing things,
Yeah, I thought that was
has a
just a
bit of
little
sass,
quip.
and I
Yeah,
don't like
exactly
that.
that. Yeah. No, I agree. I think it enhances it. I think you don't
I
want
know
the
we've had a
dry
couple.
line every time.
We had yeah. There's been a few times where people have taken offence to their replies. You know, I reposted the the photo of the guy who was complaining back when 40k changed edition and was like, oh, you can't shoot Guilliman if there's one guardsman in front of him. And it's like, if you can't deal with one guardsman, you're not going to have any luck dealing with Guilliman. And the bloke's like, oh, that's not, oh, they shouldn't take the mick out of me. And it's like, well, you know, unfortunately, when you post on a public thing like that, it's sort of fair game. It wasn't mean. It was,
Mm.
you know, it was a little bit tongue in cheek, like, take a second to think about it, because actually if you said think about that comment, it is a bit silly.
And it is just it's about a game. It's a sort of
Yeah,
an
and
amusing thing we're having fun with in the by its very nature. Like, not really taking the mick. No one's really suffering there.
the Necron profile was a great one as well. Can we see the Necron profile? And they put a picture up of a Necron in profile,
Amazing.
and there you
Amazing.
go. Like, they work to schedules. Like, they're not giving you stuff ahead of schedule.
No.
These things are planned out. Like, if you're going to ask about the Primarch, what's the next Primarch to be released? Guess what? They're not going to tell you unless it's part of their plan to tell you. In which case, they can only tell you once they've told you. So you're not going to get told, unless you're at an event and you can ask them specifically and get a hint. Like, official channels will always be like this.
I would love it
But hey,
just to throw people into a bit of disarray if they did actually respond once with yeah, here you go.
yeah.
Actually showed something off just to be like, well, they did it that one time. It would drive everyone mad. It was just
Well, that's the problem. Is it?
you can't question every time
That's
forevermore.
the problem, right? And this is why I answer when I'm at an event. I answer all the questions all the same way. It's in the pack. It's in the pack. Because as soon
Yeah.
as you deviate from that, you open yourself up.
Yeah.
But hey, what can you do? We also got the news that apparently Age of Sigmar is coming or something. So Heresy Thursday is disappearing, much to the. I don't know if you heard the wailing and gnashing of teeth as a whole community. End up despairing.
I did look forward. I mean, it's not gone. Obviously, it's just taken a pause while the full media machine goes behind Age of Sigmar. I did look forward to the Thursday, usually around 2
for
o'clock.
sure.
I was like, always quite enjoyed jumping on and hitting refresh. So, oh, what have we got today? Because it was all in the realms of quite surprising, particularly as we've not had any preview shows for a while.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? Even the people who hated 90% of the previews were like, "Oh, we're not getting a Heresy Thursday." It's like, well, you don't like what they put out anyway. Like you're always moaning that it's this, or that, or not this, or not that. So, but they're still moaning. Like that's nature of the beast for that kind of thing. But yeah, we got a few months break, and guess what happens as soon as they announce they're going to have a break? They give us some free rules, like while Heresy
I like
Thursday's
that.
on the break. So it's not like it's
classic Heresy Thursday type thing as well.
Yeah, exactly. It would have been out, but what can you do? You've just got to get cool. We might not get anything for Heresy right now, but it doesn't mean they won't drop something or just randomly release something in that period of time. Just don't expect it. That's the key. As we say, expectation causes the problems. I hope doesn't. Cool. So yeah, we did.
But that was another one, wasn't it? The little
Hermes
rules
Light
for the little
Sentinel
Sentinels.
Squadron. So this is 50 points for 2 Light Sentinels. And you can add up to 4 more for 18 points each. 18 points each.
That is crazy.
What's that?
What's less than a Terminator?
Yeah. So
That's,
40,
I mean, a tactical marine's about used to be 15.
122 for 6 of them. They come with what do they come with? Multi-lasers, don't they, as standard?
Yeah.
In addition, and it can run against the Shrouded 5 Plus per special rule. Cool, groovy. You can swap your multi-laser to a Hermes grenade launcher for +5 points, 18-inch range, and it's only grenades. So frag is strength 4, AP 5, assault 1, pinning, blast 3, and crack is strength 6, but only AP 4 with assault 2. So not deadly by any stretch of the imagination. I can't remember the stats on a multi-laser, but they're very cheap. I mean, they only have 2 wounds, 5 toughness, and 4 up save, but they're cheap.
Yeah, the 4 up save
Movement
hurts,
10 as well.
But they do have the they get a bonus if they're moving quickly.
Yeah, and shrouded, as I say, shrouded for moving quickly. So if you want to get up somewhere and do your thing, then you absolutely can go and do that.
I like them.
Yeah.
I think they're cool little things.
What's nice? Yeah, what's nice is 65 points for the Velataris Squadron version. So 2 Velataris Sentinels have the Tertio rules and the Storm section as well. Up to 4 more at 24 points each, and they come with a Volkite Caliber, which you can replace with a Heavy Flamer for free. When selecting units for an Auxilia Velataris Tertio, 1 squadron can be included in place of one of the Storm sections. They've got a 3-up armor save and a Volkite Caliber, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, a bit more points, but they get the Tertio rules in there. They've got reinforced void armor, whereas the normal ones just have void armor. And 3-up save is so much better than a 4-up save because it's not getting ignored by autocannons, although they rend anyway, but heavy bolters, things like that, which will really hurt them. Only movement 8, but they're also weapon skill, ballistic skill 4 compared to the others. So you're getting a lot extra for your points.
It's a lot of ups, yeah. It's a lot of little extras there.
Yeah, and it's, I mean, even if they're not that good, they're just cool. Like, Calibers, Volkite Calibers are fine. they're fine. 65 points for two models with those on. I mean, it's cheap.
Yeah, I think
And
the stripped down one is probably got the edge for me, but the armored one does look kind of cool.
yeah, I just whatever really. I think if you got solo, it's like a little squad of them harassing and what have you. I've only got one attack. They're not doing a lot in combat, but yeah, who cares? Maybe you go frag grenades and start trying to pin stuff. Strength 4, AP 5. Get a few hits on things. They can get in the way, can't they?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, if you
That's
do that
true.
as well, and you can get around the flank or back of vehicles, then they are strength 5 themselves, and they have got a strength 6 crack gun weapon then. So you might be able to ping the last hits off a tank or something.
They
They're
are
not
the
gonna.
absolute definition of the perfect kind of harassing thing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the only issue with those top ones, they will eventually go down to bolt gunfire, and it might not take that long. But
Yeah,
hey,
that's true. Yeah.
at least the 3+1s get that little bit extra. But they're cool, I think. Really cool. And that was about it for like new stuff.
Yeah, that was all that was happening in the sort of official stuff. Well, we have had yes, it's new stuff. The other stuff's all just been pre-orders. We have got
Yeah,
the Legion's pre-order went up, which is coming up shortly, which is the Dracosan box of transports, which I think is going to be quite a big deal for the
yeah.
Solar
It's
Auxilia.
almost everything, isn't it? Out now,
This is now everything that we have rules for.
is it? I thought there
So the
might be
only
one
stuff we
thing
haven't,
missing, but
I'm pretty sure that's all of it
it might be
now.
all of it.
Pretty sure that's all of it now. I don't think there's another Malcador variant. Lehman Russ. That's what we don't have.
That's right. Yep,
We
I
don't
knew there
have a
was
box
something.
of Lehman Russ.
That won't
There's a
take long
box of
though, is
Lehman
it?
Russ. It hasn't come out. And Predators. Lehman Russ and
That's right.
Predators, I think you can't get
And then we're up to date
separately.
with the Rose
Then
releases.
that's everything that's got rules.
Yeah, and that's
After
good.
that, we've then got Shadow Swords and Termites that have been shown off. And clearly some kind of expansion book that will
For sure.
contain them and a bunch of other things, I'd imagine.
Do you see these wicked brick display cabinets?
Yes, I have heard about those.
They're quite cool, from what I can tell. The price, well, as usual for anything like this, really, it's not going to be cheap.
No, mileage may vary, kind of
What are
attitude
we
they
up
always do
to?
it.
So the display, for those who don't know, the display cases that come with a background for 40k or Age of Sigmar are like little square units, and you get loads of different sizes. And they're kind of cool. Bespoke, made to order, which is part of the problem. So a 100mm by 100mm square box, which will basically have one Terminator size figure in it. Something maybe a little bit bigger. That is going to set you back. How much are those? £20.99. The
Hmm.
big issue with this is I think you can get Lego display boxes on Amazon or wherever for a fair bit cheaper.
Hmm.
I do like them. I think they're good. I'm not sure how that price is going to stand up.
There's always going to be a market for people for something going out there that's sort of official, something
Yeah,
that's got a
absolutely.
tie in like that. There's always going to do well, but yeah, it can be a tricky justification when there are alternatives.
Yeah, if you go, I mean, the biggest one is 650 mil by 194 mil high and 225 mil deep. So more than easily going to fit in any dreadnought, and quite a few of the bigger Tyranid things are going to fit in there height wise. But it's
I'm
82 quid.
slightly surprised they haven't got something big enough for a knight.
yet.
I wonder if structurally that might start to become a bit of a problem. But yeah,
And I
interesting.
thought so. I mean, it's heavy perspex, isn't it? And
Mm.
interlocking, like corner joints. Yeah, I wouldn't have thought it'd be a major issue. But again,
Yeah,
it's
which is
price,
why
I
I'm surprised they don't
suspect.
do one. Mm.
You could have something that costs as much as the night to put the night in.
Mm.
But it's, I
Mm.
mean, if you're into properly displaying stuff, like maybe one or two of these on a, if you're, you've got one or two models you're super impressed with, putting them on
Well, there's a
display.
few. Well, there's you do. Yeah, I agree. I think, and I see that being a thing. The amount of hours that people spend, I mean, that being a hobby in and of itself. We got the model painting open over in Bristol this coming month,
Yes. Oh, yes, there is.
which that's going to be pretty cool. So there's certainly plenty of people whose sole hobby is the painting,
Oh, for
and
sure.
the gaming is not only secondary but non-existent
Mm. And
for those.
some of those,
Perfect, lovely.
not even competition painters, just people who are proud
Yeah.
of a model or two. Um, yeah, I think there are cheaper options that are just as good. Uh, you want to be able to print off the background right. Um,
Mm.
that's about the only thing I think. But there's plenty of ways of doing that now. Getting that sent
Well,
through.
including some sort of bespoke type things, which that Artis Opus did a whole range of
Yeah,
display solutions, didn't they?
those little cabinets. Yeah, they weren't cheap either, but
They were
they were
also,
good,
yeah,
top
spendy.
quality
Yeah,
product by the looks of it. I haven't actually seen one in real life, but
me
they
neither.
looked very good. Uh, but yeah, as I say, just you, you you put an army in one of those, it's going to cost you a lot. But put a few models in your living room that you're proud of
Yeah,
is a different beast. You just reminded me about the MPO. Yeah, that's going on soon.
it's the middle of,
But
I think, is it the middle weekend in May? I want to say
yeah,
May the
there's
14th.
someone going who wanted to buy a running away man from the giant kit, and I said I'd look one up and I'd get it to him when he's visiting because he's from Finland, so I need to get on with that at some point. But yeah, you're right. We were talking about events earlier. That's going on. Games Workshop haven't got a stream announced yet. They've released tickets for their events. They're doing like the Narrative Open and that in Seattle. Is that going? Is it Seattle again this year? Either way,
Yeah,
I think it's
there's a whole tour, isn't there, of the US?
yeah,
There's quite a lot of US events, which is good.
yeah. But they yes, well, kind of expecting them to announce a non Warhammer Fest stream
I'm surprised they haven't announced that already, but I suppose they don't announce those streams more than about
a
can
few
even
weeks
be
in
just a
advance.
week.
Yeah,
Yeah, a week.
yeah.
It can even be a week in advance in some
I'm
cases.
surprised. Well, I'm surprised they haven't done an online Warhammer Fest and put that out that they're doing something like they do with Warhammer Day.
I don't think they particularly want to draw attention to the fact.
Well, they haven't
I
got a
agree with you.
Warhammer
I
Fest.
agree. I think that's
Yeah,
why. That's the
maybe
only reason I can think is that you don't particularly want to celebrate the fact that you haven't got. Different matter when they couldn't have
COVID.
a Warhammer
Yeah,
Fest. Then you do make a big deal of it. Here, I think that just begs the question: why aren't you having a fest?
yeah.
And
So when was their
that's a tricky
last?
conversation.
The last reveal was Adepticon, so
Yeah.
end of March.
So they'll tie it in. I would imagine they might do one, and they'll call it something else.
Yeah,
They won't call it Warhammer Fest online or anything. They'll
no.
just give it another particular name, and
For
then they'll
the
tie it in.
next,
They'll have others tied into other events.
yeah, next one we know about will be Nova. I don't know when that narrative is, to be honest. But we're coming up to a year ago that they revealed the roadmap. So
Oh
end of
right,
this month,
okay.
the last bank holiday of April, the last Monday was that weekend was when they revealed the roadmap. So as one roadmap ends, you kind of want the next one to be ready to go, don't you? As a punter.
I think the only thing we haven't I haven't reviewed the roadmap for a while, but the only thing that jumps out for me is the
Command
assault
squad.
weapons.
So yes, command squad shown
We've
off,
been
but hasn't it?
shown we've been
Yeah.
shown the command squad, but we haven't even been shown the weapons. But other than that, I think everything on there's been
Well, and
covered.
that's it, isn't it? Right, they did a year's roadmap, and hopefully we'll see everything roughly around that year's time.
Yeah.
And the question will then be on everyone's lips, what's coming? So
Yeah.
the next roadmap should really be ready to go.
Well, that would be great if they did do another roadmap of that nature. I think those are
So
really
kind of time is, what did we see at Adepticon? We didn't get, the earth-shattering thing was, oh no, Age of Sigmar's coming. Wow, no one guessed it. Which is always the way, is what it is.
yeah, with an addition. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, they
Everyone
showed off. I
didn't see
can't
that
remember
coming a
what they
while.
showed off for 40k. Was it the
Kroot.
Kroot? Yes. So, and that's kind of been and gone. Like now, everyone's onto orcs and
Yeah,
custodies for various reasons. So, give it another month, and again, people will be wondering what's next for that. And
yeah, because Kroot has actually got its not just its army box release; it's got its full release
well,
this
they have,
coming weekend, I
yeah,
think.
exactly.
And Tau gets its regular release to go with it. So I'm not actually sure what's coming after that for 40k.
No, well, this is
I don't
it.
think that's been announced. I think it's I mean, it's going to go on hold a bit for Age of Sigmar, but 40k and Heresy, yeah, a bit
I do
unknown.
think. So the Dark Oath now out, and I want to collect some of that for the old world, but that's going to have to sit back. Time and
I
money
think
is not
Necromunda is going to
conducive.
be an interesting watch as well,
Yeah,
and
nothing
I think
major.
something's coming for that. I think that's going to be a sort of semi-refresh, not a refresh. That's rubbish. Just an expansion, same as Ash Waste was. I think they're going to do a bit of
Yes.
and explore a whole other facet of
Have
it
they gone
next,
into
which
Hive
should be really interesting.
Secondus yet? Hive
I think that's
Secondus?
what it's going to be. I think that's what
Yeah.
this is. I think it's going to be quarantined gene stealers and stuff.
Yeah, there's something that looks like it could be one of the reveals. One of the
Oh, a claw.
engine. Yeah, a claw that looks like it could be something like Spires. I don't think they'll do a Spire gang
Oh,
the way we
interesting.
know it, but there is some
No,
talk that it resembles some of that kind of tech, and that maybe we're going to get some of those nobles coming down to hunt.
I saw a
And
claw
also some
on there,
talk
which I
about
thought
rat skins or equivalent of like natives
interesting.
as well, but I don't
The
know how true
silhouette
any of those.
in the teaser that they showed for it, the silhouette of the models there was some very Bansar like
Yeah,
aspects to them, but I think that might be a red
that's
herring.
when they were talking about they were talking about potentially being a Spira,
Yeah,
um,
I think you're right. I think it'll
utilizing
be
that
quite a
tech.
different approach. There is a claw on one of those leak machine things. What's it called? I forget what it's
Room
called. The
engine.
little room engine. That's it. The little thing there. I thought, oh, that's clearly a gene stealer thing. However, someone pointed out it could be Yarrick
Yeah. Well, yeah,
because it had some. It was quite reminiscent of the first iteration of Orc Power Claws.
sure.
I was given the nostalgia love they have for this. It would have been quite a departure from his last model, but it would go back, skip a generation, and go back, which I thought was quite fun.
They've teased that something's coming for Lord of the Rings, haven't they? They've teased that
Oh, have they?
we're going. I thought I saw something like, don't worry, Lord of the Rings will be getting something, or maybe I misread that. Maybe that was somewhere else. But those guys are waiting on something to happen. Bless them. Oh no, that was the Arnold Riders. That's right. They've all been
Right.
revealed. Blood Bowl's got its gnome team, but okay, there's always something that could be dropped for them, but that might be a little while off. Yeah, I mean, what's next for Heresy? Where's the next book? Legions Imperialis. We know there's a book coming. Let's keep the hype going for that. Old World. We know there's dwarf dice out there. Dwarfs will be coming probably next, I would think, after the orcs. So,
Yeah,
give us that. But there's enough there to have a show.
definitely. Yeah.
And it's that time of the year where lots of things like that are kind of Fest was a big, not just because it was Fest, but oh, sorry, should I say, because it was Fest, it became that time of year to do stuff.
Yeah, and
I'm
given
sure
the
we'll get a better look at if this was Fest this year, you'd have Age of Sigmar to play. and a full
Yes.
look at the box and that kind of thing.
Well, I would have thought they would have also had. They've planned these things. Obviously, their release cycle has to be planned so far in advance. You'd be your marketing machine effectively would be thinking, okay, we're going to have this talked about in this period. I would have thought that there's going to need to be something, because if there is an absence of a Warhammer Fest, you'd suddenly see a ramping up of the talking about a bunch of things just to let people know it's coming. I
Well,
feel
they
like we're
don't want.
about to have that, aren't we?
So, well, yeah. So you've got so we know, right? July and June, July is your pre-order release period for Age of Sigmar. So nothing's going to happen around that time to distract from that. So there's a good, 3-4 week period where,
Mm,
certainly the 2 week period, but also the week or two before might be building up towards that. So that takes June out the equation, doesn't it?
mm,
Right, and then you got the releases come out, and then other stuff will jump in at that point. But then you're almost in, I think, August for Nova. Like, so there's that whole period there that's kind of sorted and settled. So you want something before that, I would have thought. Again,
mm.
and traditionally they have. So it does make sense that there should be some kind of a reveal show. Um, but hey, we've probably said those two words far too many times. There was something else I was going to bring up with it though.
Hopefully something will come along, but we're
What
here
Black
for it
Library up
as
to
and when.
as well, you know?
Oh
I mean,
yeah,
that's a
that's
different
gotten
story. Like,
so quiet. Yeah.
Heresy's gone down. Yeah, cool. They've released some books. Cool. This is like, we know something's coming. Like, you know, so wouldn't be surprised to see something on that side of things as well. I mean, there's lots of rumours doing the rounds at the moment as well, because this silence leaves that opportunity for rumours as well. And some of them, the words "the fires of Syraxis" has been brought up, um,
Oh,
which Forge World don't make those books anymore. For those who don't know, Fires of Syraxis was going to be an Imperial Armour story that was written almost exclusively, I believe, in Andy Hoare's spare time,
mm,
which was going to bring rules for 30k Mechanicum models to be used in 40k and kind of breach that divide. That stands to be less likely if Games Workshop want um, their lines to be for separate games to be separate for accounting and justification.
yeah.
But also, Fast Traxxas didn't come out because 40k completely changed its whole rule set, and also the story changed. Like, it was written to be set in pre uh, pre-split Imperium times and would have to be completely rewritten. And he was like, I don't have the time or the effort or the energy to
Yeah.
kind of go and do it.
Having done this once, I can't
Yeah.
go and do it again. Yeah.
So, it was unlikely. When was that? 6, 7, 8 years ago that came.
Mm,
That 40k changed and adapted. So that immediately sparks. Unless they've miswritten in a rumor, it kind of puts doubt on the whole thing for me. I mean, I saw rumors that they're gonna 40k third edition is going to make a comeback in the same way as the old world. And I'm like, but there we go.
mm, mm.
Someone's out there just trying to make them a name for themselves, I'm sure, or stir, just stir. Who knows?
There's a
Anyway,
bit of that at the moment, isn't there? Yeah. You can see that with the rumor chat. But hopefully we'll get more to talk about with some
yeah,
upcoming
I
reveals.
mean, we've managed to talk quite a lot about a news section that doesn't have a lot of news in it. The show news. So next episode is our 10-year anniversary episode, which is quite phenomenal, really. Still haven't worked out exactly what we're doing for it in keeping to the traditions of the show. But one thing I have finally got round to is I didn't know until a few months ago that YouTube has a podcasts section.
I think it's a
And
relatively new feature, actually.
it is. I've had it in different areas, and it is relatively new. And I don't really know how it works in terms of searching for stuff and when it shows up in people's algorithms and all that kind of thing. Whatever. But we've toyed with putting the show on YouTube, toyed with having video content, and frankly, I I think the only way we could do it is to record it live and just put it out unedited, and
Mm.
that is not particularly easy for us to do in the situation we're in. Even if we recorded on several evenings, if the missus walks in, bless her, it's her house as well. I can't just say you're not allowed in this room. She'd be mortified if she then appeared on on
Yeah.
YouTube. But also, yeah. So editing, yeah, because editing for video content is even more of a hassle than it is for audio, and the audio's editing is minimal on here as it is. So what's really easy to do is just give Amazon your RSS feed and upload
Mm.
196 episodes of this show and various other little bits and pieces. The first 42 of which I've had to take down because of copyright. Back when we used to use non-royalty free music. The ones that are up there now, we're allowed to use that music as long as we're not making money, we're not monetizing the show on YouTube. So that's fine. I will try and find time to go back into those episodes and remove the royalty free, the issues, the copyright issued music, so we can load them up. And then, yeah, you can listen via YouTube. If you really, really want to, you can go back and listen to really old shows. There are some golden stuff in there. There's some evergreen content back there, particularly the interviews with authors, things like that.
Oh yeah,
Um,
those are particularly strong. Yeah.
yeah, I'm sort of tempted maybe to break them out and put them out. I don't really know yet if I want to try and go to the effort of pulling stuff out and having a sub section of it. I've got to play with it, where I
It does let you
post
put
new
together
stuff.
lists, doesn't it?
Yeah, so
YouTube
I could.
lets you do that and say, hey, here's a set of lists, or even if you just created that as a
I
standalone
think
thing.
it works the same on the podcast section. So
Mm.
I might have the standard one, which is the actual show in its full glory, and then the other one where I pull out segments, and that way we can curate the more relevant sections, because
Okay.
obviously the first 100 and whatever episodes were first edition heresy as well. So rules wise, those bits are less relevant. But there's some good stuff back there. There's some not so good stuff back there. Yeah, enter at your own risk. But I'll try and. It's one of those things where actually I've got to remember, if I've got 10 minutes, to maybe go back and look at some of the content and maybe update some descriptions or something like that as well. I don't know. We'll see. There's plenty to do. It's not like James gives me that time anymore. So hey
But it's up
ho.
there. Another way to consume
Indeed, we are everywhere.
the back catalogue.
I
So
am.
that's
Yeah.
got to be good choices, surely.
Yeah. Real Big Fish would be happy with me. I would fit their "Sell-Out" song completely. Um, just need the money to roll in now, even though we
That's it.
haven't monetized it.
Just retire on that. Insane content. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Awesome.
All right.
I think that's it. I think that's it.
That
Anyway,
covers everything. We'll check in next time.
indeed, we've got some interesting topics hopefully for you today, and yeah, we'll come back. And I will say again, like if you've got any ideas for any topics for the show, if there's something you want to talk about, want us to talk about in the next episode, the 10-year anniversary episode, then fire them over, because I need good ideas. So yeah, we'll do that. Awesome. Okay, well, a couple of weekends ago of recording, attended the Orthan's Hope event up in, well, basically Stratford upon Avon, Shakespeare country, for those who don't know. A lovely, lovely city centre. Never been before. Well, I've driven around the outskirts, but I didn't spend much time there, but might have to add it to the holiday list. Um, feels a bit like some of the towns down this way, like Lewis and things, kind of small streets and all that. But the actual event occurred just to say a few miles away from the city centre in a suburb. It was like one of the nicest areas you'll have an event. It
There's
was
something quite cool about that. They're going into a going into a setting like that. That's such a nice place to go anyway. And then having that rather than it being out on like some
industrial
remote
estate, yeah.
location. Industrial estate was what I was thinking of. Yeah. I was trying to think of an event that is out like that. But yeah, that's a good start at least.
Yeah, sort of like in the burbs, this little
Hmm.
centre, yeah, nice and peaceful and chilled. Yeah, it was pretty cool and easy place to get around and stuff like that. So basically, Orthan's Hope has been run. I can't remember the guy's name now, but it's been run down in the southwest for a number of events, and they've got a fantastic reputation for these wonderful tables. Kind of a city fight feel to them, and in order to expand it, um, it was someone else was like, "I got a venue you can use. I can open the venue up and you can come up and do that," which is super cool, frankly, that it gets out like that.
Where in the southwest was it previously?
I'm trying to remember now. Devon or Cornwall.
Okay.
It's quite far down, I think. Might be Devon actually. Might be near Entoyment, but I don't know if it is.
Well, Entoyment's Dorset, but
Is
still,
it Dorset? Is it?
Devon.
Oh,
Is further you
maybe
get
I'm
into
wrong. Maybe it
Cornwall.
is Devon. Maybe I'm getting confused.
As soon as you get
Um,
into Cornwall, that's a mission for
yeah,
most people
I'm not 100%
to get
sure
all the
now.
way down there.
Gone mad. Let me see if I can find. Oh, Curtain Games. Sorry.
Oh,
There's
interesting.
Curtain Games. Let me have a little look.
There are
See if I
so
can find it.
many sort of smaller groups. Is that presumably that's a store, not a
Curtain
games
Games
club?
is, yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
It's a store. Yeah, there's so many little stores that are sort of opening up and I'm becoming aware of compared to before, because you'd search for things before, and but there's the big hitters, but there's quite
Exeter.
a lot of small ones. Exeter, okay, Devon, right?
Yeah, Devon. Sorry, my geography down that way
Yeah, fair enough.
loses track a little bit. Exeter. I knew it was one of them down southwest way.
One of those clotted cream places. Yeah.
Indeed. So the idea is to put your jam and your cream on half and half, like half of the side, and then you offend everyone. So that's good.
That's requires some skill to do that, I think.
Yeah, yeah, we would do. Would depend on the consistency of the jam, particularly, and the thickness of the cream.
This is a
But
really international point of our conversation. Yeah.
that's all right. Well, bring a bit of culture uh, to the show. So yeah, the kind of thing around these is these tables are set up and look amazing, and the event has a city fight theme to it, which comes with some additional rules based around that, and yeah, all kinds of fun. Four games of narrative gaming based around this, and they've come with a really good rep.
Nice.
So it was like, cool, seems a bit different. I like something a bit different every now and then.
How
So
did
let's
you
go
hear
and jump
about it?
through. So the guy who runs it, who goes by Apostate Hobbies on various things. I cannot remember his name. Jamie, I want to say. No, forgive me, can't remember his name. This is the one problem with having everything on the internet, on Discords, on forums, is and I'm guilty of it. I'm child of Fang everywhere. But if you don't know my name, then I'm just child of Fang everywhere.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, but the certainly some of the guys from the Merchant Princeton's podcast went down there. One of
Right.
the guys who helps him out is a guy called Kerry, who I've known for a number of years, and just other people going down. Now you see things on Instagram about events, things like that. And sometimes they catch your eye, and you're like, oh, what's that? But this is chapter 5, I think he's done, and he's quite prominent on the Merchant Princeton podcast Discord channel with showing off his terrain and coming up with rules and things like that, and talking about the like the progression of the story
Hmm.
as well. So all of that helps build kind of this hype,
Hmm.
and seeing all these tables and things. They do a good job of all that, to be fair, marketing it, and it's an event that has a lot of effort and money actually put into it because of making a number of tables of lots of terrain and what have you.
Mm.
And one thing was like, I'm running these events. It's all the way down here, and it costs quite a lot. And I was like, well, one way to help recoup that money is to run the same event multiple times,
Yeah.
which is
Okay.
something that the guys did with Jungles of Icarus or whatever it was called. Those guys, Perfect Pete, down in Southampton way from Lost
Hmm.
Legions podcast. They ran the same event in 3 or 4 locations, or
Oh, that's
four,
cool.
four,
Yeah.
four different times around. So
Presumably they must
your
have had a way
heart,
to transport it, essentially.
yeah, yeah. I mean, theirs was a lot of theirs was the Zone Mortalis one with like cardboard, like good heavy cardboard walls and things like that
Mm.
that worked really well. But also, it means you put all that effort into making a pack, and you might tweak it between events,
Mm.
but the
But
pack
it's
stays
largely
the
the
same.
same. Yeah.
So yeah, it's not just the effort of the terrain and all that, but the effort of the pack, playing the scenarios, all of that is used multiple times. It's a really good idea, particularly if you've got, these events have limited space because of how many tables are available, because of the nature of the tables, and because they want them to look right and be
Yeah.
narrative. So it's a lot of effort. So get the most out of that.
I love the idea of there someone being someone like some people do with bands, so when they go on a tour, just like someone following them around.
Yeah,
This is my
absolutely
third
right.
time.
I'm sure some people did something like that. But also it means, you know, people elsewhere get to see it, because particularly if you're down somewhere like the southwest, where actually it's starts to get harder
Having
to
lived
get to.
most of my life down in that part of the world, you sort of think it's very easy when you're within it, but it's fairly quick to not realize how hard it is to get to from not that
Yeah,
far away
I
as the
mean,
crow flies. Like you start getting up Birmingham beyond, it's like, oh, this is a mission now to
well,
get down to these
yeah.
places.
I mean, I'm on the south coast, right? So people are like, "Oh, yeah, you can go," and it's like, well, I'm south of London, and
Yeah.
they're in Exeter, so it's 168 miles as the crow flies. And for me, this is like late night would be 4 hours. During the
Oof.
day would
Yeah, you
be,
see there you go.
yeah, during the day would be considerably more. I mean, yeah, it's not viewed, but
Yeah,
it's far enough. Um,
yeah, for sure.
so and that's from me with on a good run. So yeah, you're absolutely right. So it expands it out as well, and that is the one. So back in the day when slight tangent here, but back in the day when I used to play Warhammer tournaments, uh, there were a lot, but there would tended to be some small local ones, but lots of big ones that people used to drive and go to. And as the scene got bigger, um, like more events started popping up,
Right.
and it was really cool because you didn't have to travel as far, but it had a knock-on effect that the people from Edinburgh that I used to see regularly, I started to see once a year, if that,
Yeah.
because well, they didn't have to travel 6 hours because they had plenty of options within
Oh, I
3 to 4 hours. So
Interesting. Mm.
there is a like an unintended consequence to a
Yeah,
positive quite a lot of
that's a
the
good way of
time.
putting it. Yeah.
That's because I've been listening to Freakonomics, all about unintended consequences today. But it's there's there are positives and negatives to lots of decisions. But anyway, Orthan type. So yeah, this kind of event has been generating a bit of buzz, and all good things. So thought, why not get myself up to it, and not been up to the Scribes of War Club is where it's run. They run some events, and um, it took me 3.5 hours, I think, on a Friday evening. I was lucky There was not much traffic, but that's manageable. I could leave later in the evening and get out there. That's fine. But yeah, onto the gaming. So as far as city fight rules go, they'd put some extra little bits in, allowing you to move through buildings a little bit easier for infantry. Cool. Some negatives to Deep Strike, which I don't think I played properly, but I also ignored, so it might have been alright for me. But when performing a Deep Strike assault, if a model lands either in impassable terrain or difficult terrain, the opposing player may move that model 18 inches. That's quite big. Some of those tables were quite dense. So,
Interesting.
like, a little negative to Deep Striking. Cover saves were increased, so fortified building was a 3 up, a ruined building was a 4 up, wrecked rubble walls 5 ups, cool, but you got modifiers to that. So ordnance weapons gave you a -1, blast weapons a -1, weapons strength 9 or higher -2, and then on top of that, if you had height advantage, there was a -1 to the cover save.
I always like that. I mean, that says a lot about the quality of the terrain,
Yeah.
because a lot would only be still working on the 2D plane. But I really like that when you get that three dimensionality
Yeah, I mean
represented.
they did put height advantages 8 inches or higher. We generally played it like
Ooh,
reasonable height
yeah,
advantage because there wasn't always 8 inches height advantage on tables.
that is quite a bit.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and weapons fired by flyers were a -1 to cover saves as well.
Okay.
But flyers themselves were -1 to hit
Ah. Okay.
because of the nature of the battlefield. And difficult terrain for vehicles, basically you rolled 2d6 instead of 1 to see if you going through difficult terrain, but those are
Right.
blades and that would just roll a 1 instead. Yeah, and there's other little bits.
Surprisingly
Cool.
significant boost to aircraft.
No, negative. -1 to hit when you shoot.
From the flyer. I thought it was at the
Yeah.
flyer.
No.
Gotcha.
When a flyer shoots at a ground target,
I
basically
thought
you
it was
don't have
two
time
points.
to line it up. It's too
Yeah.
compressed.
Okay.
I was still going to take a Storm Eagle. I did actually play against a couple of flyers, and that -1 came in quite handy for me
Okay.
a couple of times. Also, models fired by weapons fired by models with the height advantage gain the Sunder special rule, which
Ooh.
didn't really come into play for any of the games I played. The weapon strength 9 or higher is an interesting one. -2 to your cover save, which you kind of like, punching through walls and what have
Yeah.
you. But it does kind of make like Lascan heavy sports squads just even better. Like,
Yeah.
luckily there weren't too many, but
That's good.
do they need any more help? But overall, I like the idea of the rule. I think it's
Yeah.
cool because we'll get into what I took in a minute, but it would have maybe changed the way I played Chosen Army. Uh, it was 3,000 points. There were additional armory rules, so you could buy tarantula batteries. You had a limited amount of points you could spend on these, depending on which it got higher in the second day. You could fortify a single deployment. You could lay down booby traps on buildings. You could have jammer packs, which could on infantry, which would has a 12-inch range to nullify the effects of Nuncio Vox
Okay.
and augury scanners, and then
Ooh,
smoke
that's quite
grenades as
cool.
well. Yeah, I like that. Mixing it up a
A
little bit.
counter to augury scanners is quite cool.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I can't remember how many points it was
I was going
on
to say it's
building
paid
rules.
for, presumably. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, 40 points for each one. You can have
Ooh.
up to 4. So you got to choose if you want to take it or not. Um, yeah, and that's about it. Oh, you could also have there were 5 warlord traits as well that you could choose from. What do we have here? Unit and the unit they've joined gets +1 to cover saves, ignores difficult terrain, which is what I chose. Gain the
Yeah.
Sunder special rule on both ranged and melee weapons, which is cool. Infiltrate, which is pretty awesome, and a free booby trap from the armory.
Oh, nice.
But those didn't come with. There's no saying you don't get an extra reaction on those.
No.
According to those rules. So that which is a bit, it's cool. Like you can take this alternative thing, which might be really cool for you, but you're paying a cost for that,
Yeah.
which is not a bad thing, I don't think. Now I was tempted to run my demons, but wussed out in the end and borrowed some of Giles King's Sons of Horus,
Nice.
which was cool. However, I kind of forgot what he had, and he told me what he had, and then it was like, oh, I haven't got that actually. So I wanted to take Storm Eagle,
Hmm.
Fire Raptor, but based on his troops choices and things like that, I was like, oh, he's only got like a couple of units of attacks, and he's got some just air and things like that. And I was like, I want more scoring troops choices than are available. So I decided to run Pride of the Legion instead. So I could max out how many troops I could have, scoring units I could have. So
Always
Just
quite nice for
Aaron,
Sons of Horus, that.
yeah, yeah, and yeah. So I had Just Aaron as a compulsory troops choice. Also had a veteran squad with Combi Plasma as my compulsory, then 2 tax and 2 recon squads, and then a second vet squad with Combi Melters in. Those
Okay.
two vet squads had drop pods for a bit of a fun launch, and then the Just Aaron would be joined by a Warmonger
Aha. Okay.
and yeah, that was the only character that joined. Oh no, I had had to take a Pride of the Legion dude as well
So
to go with them. So Delegatus.
quite a bit of deep striking fun then, and particularly given the
Yes.
slightly spicy additional deep strike rules. Does a drop pod's inertial guidance system, how did that interact, or how does that interact with the deep
we
strike
didn't
rule that they were
we
talking about?
didn't we didn't really play it, but yeah, we kind of ignored it, to be honest. I kind of forgot it was there. But what we did was let me just try and get into my um new recruit. You are funny. Um, Typical. Yeah, so that one kind of got ignored, and the Warmonger, who was my warlord, I took ignores dangerous train,
Yeah.
so that kind of cancelled that out as well. But it was a bit ballsy, and we had, because I think, and we may have got it wrong. It's been a long time since I played. Actually, I was really rusty that first day, but we had the Warmongers had to roll separately from the drop pods because
Okay.
like they went into drop pod assault, and then the Warmonger's like a reserve roll,
Yeah.
so that could cause problems as well. So you might not get everything down at once. Um, and then the Warmonger was, yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a lot of points. What did I have here? I had Delegatus with them as well. I will go into, so I had 2 Contemptors with melters and melter guns in their hand, and I had,
And they were
uh,
walking.
yeah, everything else was normal. 1 land speeder, basic land speeder with Volkite, 2 javelins, and a Scorpius. And there were a few Scorpiuses in there
Interesting.
because Scorpius is great. Like, it doesn't have to see. They're good anyway, so in an urban environment, it's a pretty useful tank.
Yeah.
I'm obviously limited to 1 heavy support choice, so that's why I had the Scorpius over the Fire Raptor because I had, let me think, it was 7 Just Aaron, so that's
Right.
450 points
Yeah, that'll
with
do
the
it.
Warmonger, with the Delegatus. So I was running out of points because I also had 2 units of 4 Ruinstorm Demon Brutes
Oh, cool.
and an Esoterist
I was going to say, how did you
to
take them? You
summon
took them with
them.
Esoterrorist. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So it's not a huge army, but lots of ability to not much started on the table.
No.
And my thought process was, cool. Deep striking can be really powerful, but it can also be really blunted by augury scanners and return fire and all that kind of stuff. So, but we're playing in a city fight environment where there's going to be a lot of terrain. So there might be turns, and for summoning as well, because that happens in the shooting phase. So that's slightly different. So if you want to react to shoot them, um, it's taking a shooting reaction, which
Hmm.
sometimes is good to draw that out. Sometimes you want to, draw the shooting reaction out before getting them out. But I was thinking there are going to be games where I can walk up turn one, I can summon the brutes completely into cover
Hmm.
so they don't get shot on the turns that I don't want to just charge them straight in. And then when the drop pods come down again, rather than risking being shot by everything, I can drop them into cover and then I can come out on the next turn without having to have walked up the board
Nice.
and
Yeah.
be vulnerable. And that was the idea. And we'll kind of look at how it went. But I thought it was cool. I thought it was a cool idea. And again, I say, borrowing models. So I was limited by what I could borrow, which is fine. And thanks to Charles, support army. So I won't go into massive detail on all the games, but we
How many
will.
games was it? I missed that
Four
when you
games,
just said
two
four
and
games.
two.
Okay.
Yeah, which on the first day was really good. On the second day, I was like finished a lot quicker. The first day, games went to time because it's been a long time since I played. So quite rusty trying to get everything going. But I played in Skelsey game one, and I did write some notes down, but not many because I was losing track
Trying
of
to
what's going
remember
on.
how to play the game.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it was Alpha Legion, and this game
Oh,
getting
interesting. Mm.
constantly saying, "How far away are that squad? Are
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
2 inches further away, or are they 8 inches further away?" And all that, which is nothing to do with Ian. It's just that there's the rules, and just couldn't quite
That's Alpha
remember who
Legion.
was
Yeah.
who, and whatever. Um, but it was like corner deployments, like 18 inches around the center that you can deploy into, and it was victory conditions with table quarters. So we've ended up um, almost kind of going a side each. He had
Right.
what did he have? He had the Iron Warriors Terminators as his what are they called? My mind's
The
gone.
tyrants, siege tyrants,
Tyrants, Siege Tyrant Terminators, yeah, which
as they
was
were his thingy of the Legion.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Or no,
And
thingy of treachery. Yeah.
yeah, and he had a huge unit of jump pack dudes.
Oh,
Um,
what Legion specialists that he borrowed or
yeah, no, no,
regular assault marines?
yeah, the Alpha Legion command squad, I think.
Right.
Yeah, it was a lot of points in a unit with some cool weaponry, and it was like, oh, they could be tricky. But I have got Just Aaron that can
Yeah.
deep strike, so this kind of weird balance between him not wanting to push them up
Yeah.
and be exposed, and then him coming at me um, with some recon squads firing at each other, some contemptors moving up, and this, this game fundamentally came down with to a number of failed charges. Like there was this one area of ground which had no difficult terrain on it at all, where I
Brilliant.
think I failed 3 or 4 and he failed 2 or 3. Like 4 inch, 5 inch charges.
Amazing. I like that
It
the
was
game came down to that as well. Yeah.
it was really weird. Yeah, I ploughed in one unit of demons to kind of hold up that side, and they did a half decent job of that. My javelins were just kind of staying out of range and shooting things off. I got the better of the contemptor off. The other side, it was like trying to just hide from the Terminators, not shoot too much at them, and this command squad just say not wanting to come out. Oh, I got him here, kind of drop to drop pod, got my plasma dudes out and thought, okay, I can unleash plasma at short range at him now, that'd be fine. And I've covered it so he can't really shoot me with anything. Brilliant. Forgetting the Night Lord's reaction is to move away. And he got out
Alpha
of
Legion.
sight. Sorry, Alpha Legion. And yeah, couldn't shoot him at all. So
Amazing.
lost the shot. And it was like, oh, really? Um, and then I did actually I started to, what was useful was starting to pick off like, because it was command squad, there was like making the only guys I could hit was like the guy with the flag kind of thing.
Right.
Like, those specific models were being a problem, but this I didn't know. I can't remember when my Just Aaron went. I think they were. It's been a while, but essentially, yeah, the Just Aaron came in to try and chase them.
Right.
The command squad were like left with this decision of do they even risk it? And it's like, they haven't got power fists, and even if you have, like, oh, not many, even if you have the Sons of Horus trait of being -1 strength, that first round of combat
Yeah.
means that's a hell of a risk when I've got 4 Thunderhammers coming back at you, well, 5 or 6 with the characters, that kind of thing. But we ended up drawing on the main mission. I believe I won it on Slay the Warlord. Like, that
Right.
was it. That was the difference. Like, we had just yeah, it was a really strange thing. One unit that just ended up running of never came back kind of thing, which was
Right.
so frustrating to him. But it was like, honestly, it was like, oh, this is a 4-inch charge, I failed it. Oh, cool. No, in return, it's a 5-inch charge, failed it. And it was
Wow.
like, yeah, it was really, really kind of weird cluster. But it was a fantastic game. It was really good fun. It took me a long time to say. I was a bit rusty with the rules. But what he did do, which was brilliant, was he brought on a saboteur and some seekers
Probably.
on,
Or
on
either
yeah,
headhunters or seekers
headhunters, yeah,
who were
onto a
headhunters.
back
Cool.
and charged the rear of my Scorpius and destroyed it.
Right.
Cool. And so I moved up some tacks and I just shooting the heck out of them, like whittling them down, and then charging a javelin into the squad where this saboteur's like, cool, can't wound you. Rubbish. Roll bad dice. Like, or not even bad dice, just can't roll a 6 to wound you. And
Right.
my javelin's going, well, yeah, I killed your mate, but I also can't hit you or wound you. And just holding this saboteur up, and then me going, cool, time to run away with the javelin with my hit and run. Oh yeah, failed that
Ah.
initiative test. Okay,
Oh,
can't do
amazing.
that. Which was the story of my javelins. They couldn't pass initiative tests because he did it on the other side as well into one squad. I was like, yeah, shoot them, go into them, hold them up, come out, shoot something else. But of course, as soon as you've had that initiative test, you can't even shoot that unit with anything else. It's like, oh. But it was, it was a cracking game. It was good to get back into it. It was I say, a really tight game. Um, but yeah, really enjoyed it. Super cool, fun. Um, who did I play next? I played a couple of guys who listened to the show. Jamie Yates. Now this was so fairly heavy terrain. That one, big crashed Thunderhawk in the middle of the table. Really cool. The second game I played, and to pick games, you literally just went up, put your traitors went first for 3 out of 4, certainly 2 out of 4. You put your warlord down on a table number, then someone else puts theirs down, and then
Hmm.
you go off and play. So you could pick which table you wanted to be on if
Okay.
someone else hadn't stolen it, which I was bad at being organised to do. But this game had a massive like factory building in the centre of the table, and I'm talking like 12 inches long, kind of thing.
Right.
And for this mission, it was the triangle deployments opposite each other.
Yeah.
This mission was basically who holds the building, the tallest building, which was in the centre. So it was this
Uh-huh.
one big building, and it was, yeah, I say it was huge, and there were the two ends were open, and then halfway down on his side was a doorway, and on my side there was none.
Right.
And he was playing Imperial Fists, and he had a couple of heavy weapons support squads. He had Templars, lots of Templars, and a deep striking Warlord with some Terminators, and Dreadnought and other bits and pieces. And the first turn ended up with the only models he could shoot was his heavy support las cannon squad into my 5 recon marines. They were the only things
Okay.
that could see each other because this big building was in the way and the way the triangles worked. So he killed 4 of my recons. I killed 2 of his heavy support squad and pinned them in return. And it was like,
That's a
cool.
pretty good exchange,
Oh yeah,
considering I would
I
have
just
assumed they would have just annihilated them. But no, that's quite good.
I took it. It was really good. And then I killed off most of the squad in the next phase because they couldn't shoot back. Um, and this is where I did summon stuff in and drop stuff in a way that I wasn't getting shot too much. It was trying to swing stuff around the flank. I was trying to push round in towards the building because I was like, actually, it's could be really hard to stop Imperial Fists holding onto that building. His
Yeah.
Templars are scoring, all that stuff. I'm going to get his Warlord because he went first, and my Warlord can come after his Warlord. Oh yeah, but this was we had an extra rule in this one. I can't remember what his was, but we rolled for it, and mine was if I kill his Warlord, we get an extra point, and if his Warlord stays alive, he gets an extra point.
Right.
His was that's right. He got D6 re-rolls to use during the game.
Oof. Right.
Yeah, pretty good stuff, especially when
That's
your
pretty good.
Warlord's got a 3-up invulnerable because of his shield.
Yeah.
But so this came down to his assault cannon score. So my just Erin. So yeah, there were a few things here. First off, he kind of moved up. Second turn moved up to just outside the building and ready to come in. And
Mhm.
that turn, like everything in mine came down. So I put 2 drop pods blocking off one edge of the building, so he couldn't get round without assaulting them, and
Mhm.
put my troops the other side of it to just halt. And there was another building, like so it created a real blockage on that side. And then my demons had then come in and were going up into the middle of could step into the building in that turn. And he'd parked a rhino in the doorway of that little
Mhm.
door. And then on the other side, he had his heavy support squad with autocannons. And I thought, well, I've got to go in, even though his warlord hasn't arrived yet, which is so frustrating. I've got to go in and deal with this assault squad, heavy weapons squad with assault cannons. Sorry, not assault cannons, autocannons. And yeah, autocannons into just there, and he killed a lot.
Oh, wow.
Imperial fists. It's
Yeah.
just
Hero fists, 10 of them. Yeah.
how many dice can you roll? Because I'm going to roll 2s to hit you and 2s to wound you, and you're going to take a lot of saves.
Yeah.
And essentially, that aspect of it came down to he whittled my just there and down to the point when his dudes came in, they just destroyed mine. Um, and then he was Operation Keep his Warlord alive. Because in the middle, I charged my brutes into his Rhino, destroyed it. The Rhino blew up, pinned the
Oh
unit
no.
in the middle of it. Or was it? I might have shot it actually. Yeah, that's right. I shot it and it pinned the unit in the middle of it. And so next turn I could charge my brutes in. So 2 were standing in the doorway, so
Right.
he couldn't get in. And then on the other side, my brutes were charging into Templars. And those, I mean, I rolled. I charged 4 brutes into some Templars, and if brutes roll a 6 to wound, they're AP2. And I think I did 1 wound,
Oh.
like with
Oh God.
weapon skill 5, strength 5,
Yeah.
brutes, like awful. And on the other side, it
That's
wasn't
that.
much
That
better.
sucks. I thought they would.
It,
I mean, it
yeah,
sounded super cool. I thought that was going to be
it was. I
awesome.
mean,
But
it was still super cool, and it was like, okay, there is like because I blocked him off, I can now bring stuff around to start shooting this stuff, and maybe my just Aaron can do this, and it wasn't enough at the end of the day.
yeah.
I was worn down by it. I thought my contemptors can come in, and he just got enough into me. Not helped by the fact that my 2 drop pods were doing an amazing job of blocking everything up
Right.
until I shot one into a squad of breachers, forgetting they had 2 metal guns in the squad, and they
Oh
reacted
crap.
and shot. Yeah, so like a schoolboy error on my part, but Neil played it
That's
pretty
so
well.
easily done. I think
Oh,
that's so
big
easily
time.
done. That sort of thing. You're like, you're not thinking about it. You just say, yeah, okay, let's do this, and then suddenly, boom, it
Yeah, I mean,
turns on that.
had I been playing like more regularly, I might not have
Mm.
done it. Um, but but yeah, I mean, who cares? But yeah, we ended up with this like kind of um, like me swarming into the building and these Templars like knocking on the door the whole time, and just me unable to stop them to hold them up. I did have
Yeah.
one attempt. I think we actually contested the building in the end. And I had one contemptor shot at the end where I could maneuver in a way that the only model of his Terminator squad I could see was his Praetor, who Castellan or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And of course, made the 3-up save, didn't he? So my multi-metal didn't quite do it. But so there was a chance of me sneaking a win. But Neil took it based on the raw and killing my warlord and the extra point for his warlord being alive. But it was a great game. It was made completely different by the terrain, which is what you want. And this was the one game where, as I said, I could summon demons in and keep them hidden, or I could summon demons in and make sure that there was very limited shooting at them, because if that autocannon squad shoots a unit demons, they're dead. Like, he's not going to survive it.
Did he have one of the characters with the
he did.
autocannon squad that would mean he'd re-roll failed hits as well? I mean, that's potent.
It was filth.
Yeah. Okay.
It was filth, and my Scorpius wasn't doing its job. In that respect, but it's cool. It was a really good game. He did fail some pinning tests. I'll give him that. I did put a lot of pinning tests on him, but he did fail some, which was most fun.
Would you have preferred 2 Scorpiuses? Scorpii?
Oh yeah, always.
Or do you think one was about right?
Points.
Yeah. Okay.
There are my army is not filth. It's it has scary elements, but it's seriously not over the top in any way, shape, or form. If I had 2 Scorpii, then it still would have been.
Starts to get in. Okay, yeah.
No, still would have been right.
That's what I'm wondering. I'm sort of wondering where their relative scariness comes to.
There was some tough armies there.
Okay.
One of which I played later on.
Spoiler.
Yeah. But that was cool. It was super cool.
How are these armies looking? Are these armies looking good? I mean,
the Alpha Legion really cool. Yeah, the Templars. I mean, Templars look cool. Anyway, there were lots of good-looking armies.
I'm fans of both of these armies, just how they look. I mean, just in general, I think Alpha Legion and Fist look great on the table.
I will try and find so there are lots of photos in the Discord for Orthan's Hope. I will try and find a link to Instagram. If you do want some photos, you can find Tonka on Instagram. So Tonka is a well-known, but for those who don't know, Tonka is a cracking guy who is well known for taking lots and lots of photos at events. And what's really good actually is he posts them up later on through the week, so you don't get 100 photos in one day.
Okay.
You get he'll all of a sudden he was at Greetings, I think, that recently happened. Tonka_567. I will try and put links in the show notes.
Let's get an immediate follow.
Yeah, lots of photos, and as I say, you'll find that he will put them up, or they'll certainly be on his reels. I don't know how much he posts on Instagram, as it were. But yeah, he'll post them up through the week, so you'll get all of a sudden 5 or 6 photos on a day on a Thursday from the weekend before. So he's a good follow anyway. But yeah, there's some really cool armies. What's interesting with the Saturday night? So I'm used to I'm old, going to events for a long time. But back in the day, you had an event like that, and people would all be like, "Right, where are we going? We're all going out as a group." And it didn't. I think there were quite a few locals here, and I must admit there was football on. I was interested in watching the football, and a few people went out together, but there was no kind of real group that went out. And in some ways, that wasn't too, or maybe there was, and I wasn't invited. In some ways, that was fine.
How big an event is this? I mean, are we talking?
They were talking with 20,
30, 50?
20 players.
Okay.
Maybe 24.
That's surprising. Then I would have thought with a smaller group like that.
And I missed that, about some of the bigger events, like people staying on site and playing games and things like that. And whether that's just one of these things, but as a guy, as you know, when you get a night away, sometimes when you got a kid, you're like, cool, chill out, that's fine. But who knows? Maybe the next one will be a bit more proactive. There weren't that many people here that I really knew. Chris, who I played game for, I known came to my first event, proper proper old school,
Mhm.
and I knew people but didn't really know them. So that also plays a part of it as well.
Right.
But it's all good. I will crack on because otherwise we'll be talking about this forever. Game 3, Neil. I can't remember Neil's surname. It's really annoying. See if I can find it. Nope. But Neil was a cracking guy, another listener of the show.
Neil, not Hollis.
No, certainly not Hollis. Actually plays the game. Um, can't find the list either. That's really annoying me. Sorry, Neil. But he was using Dark Angels,
Right.
and what's this? Victory conditions of this one were there were 5 objectives dotted around, and this table had a massive wall running not all the way down the table, but a large chunk of the table on the left flank that cut off maybe a quarter of the table into a separate,
Right.
almost a separate aspect. And he had some Cenobium, and I was like, oh, don't like them. They're pretty cool. He had the flyers. He had a Storm Eagle and a Xiphon. He had
Ooh.
some Interemptors, some basic troops, Contemptor. Um, uh, he had something else as well. I can't remember, but a variety of
Yeah, it's quite a
had
varied
some.
list there. Yeah.
Yeah, it was, and
A
a lot of it
selection of
was
units. Yeah.
walking. So like the Cenobium were on foot. Um, what else did he have? Oh, he had a
Vehicles.
yeah, he had a Scorpius as well
Right.
because yeah, they are super cool. And he had some recons, and he had some with shotguns and some with snipers. It was
Hmm.
pretty cool. So I was setting up, and I don't set up much on the table. And I thought, okay, there's 5 objectives here. He's got 1 recon squad on one on the big wall. There was 1 on like the blocked off area, and there were 3 others. And I was like, okay, right, well I won't worry about that one on the far left because he deployed some units there. I was like, I'll leave that and see if I've got time later on to swing around that way, or maybe I can
Hmm.
divert off that way at the start. I deployed a couple of things that had the option to go either way. And as the game started, I was like, no, don't worry about them at the moment. Let's go right. And let's try and deal with this. Let's try and kill any Snowbin before they ever get in combat with me because they're going to ruin Just Aaron. It's not cool. It's just not the instant death blades are phenomenal.
Yeah.
Bearing in
Are
mind most of
not
my stuff's got
okay for this. Yeah.
underhammers. Not happening. Um, and this was he had so oh yeah, that's right. I sniped his Master of Signals out of a unit, which is always good. Um, the demons did the work that kind of want them to do in that I summoned them in, they charged forwards, they ruined one squad. I think one of his squads actually tried to hold the line and ended up fleeing the table in the end
Ooh.
um, because they failed their test. Um, but the demons were going in, like killing a squad and then absorbing a lot of fire. He ended up
Ooh.
having, like, on one of them, having to turn his Cenobium around to go and deal with the demons. And I was like, this is perfect. This is me pushing up the board,
Yeah.
being able to control where he's fighting and that as I was starting to get this control and the Fire Raptor came on, didn't do a lot. This was where the -1s to hit were coming in. His Xiphon came in to fire at my Scorpius and failed to kill it.
Ooh. Right. Okay.
Stunned it. I was like, well, that was lucky. So I kind of got to fire that in future turns. The best thing was he brought on. Oh, this might be the one that he brought. Oh, what squad was it? He deep struck some stuff onto the table, and I got most of it and was left with like one dude, sergeant from the what? There's the squad you can have the 3 or 4 models that Dark Angels have. I can't remember what they're called
Wouldn't that
now.
be the Cenobium?
No,
Oh, the
no,
Cenobium is the Deathwing
no. They weren't Terminators. They were
companions.
no. Was it? I can't remember what
Yeah,
they're
power
called
armored
now.
companions, aren't they?
Yeah, maybe it was them. I can't remember for the life of me.
Yeah,
It's been too long.
I know what you mean.
So,
Yeah,
no,
they're sort of they're funky power armored resin unit
like
that
3 or 4 of them. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. They're like
yeah,
a Dark Angel command squad kind of thing, but they're not
something like
command
that.
squad. They
Anyway,
tend to be bodyguards. Yeah.
we brought them in and killed all but one. Left one like there's one dude on one wound. He was like, oh, he's going to kill my Scorpius, and he's going to be a pain. And the turn he failed to kill my Scorpius, I was like, stuff it. Yeah, ran out of shots. Okay. Oh, got a Scorpius with a combi bolter. Oh, hit. Oh, wounded. Oh, he's only got a 3-up
No.
save. He's dead.
Oh,
So I felt a
no.
little bit bad for. But because I was managing to keep this control, like I bought my um, guns in and my plasmas in and like concentrate. If I killed all the Snowbeam out of combat, like including the character with them as a result, started to get this control on the left side where he had these recon marines and his interemptors and that. I brought my just Aaron down and just went, well, there's nothing on this side to really kill me, so took some heat from the Cenobium, just killed that side, and then
Right.
um, and then stayed on the objective. It's just like, well, I'm miles away from everything. I'm just going to stay here, and you're going to struggle to kill me off this objective. And I basically, where I was aggressive and where I pushed Neil back, he then was just losing out on points. Like he could contest stuff, but he was only scoring the one that was in his deployment zone, where I was
Right.
always scoring mine and I was scoring the middle ones. And it didn't help. Like you say, his recon marine, I managed to break them and then go and sit on the objective with a speeder,
Right.
like
Okay.
to make it hard for him to get back at me, that kind of stuff.
Your
But
list did have quite good options for sort of keeping things mobile, moving around. It sounded like
yeah,
you had quite a few options in there, which is quite nice.
yeah, there's a lot of little bits and pieces, like little javelin squads are one are amazing because they're toughness 6. You can just charge them into attack squad, and there's a good chance that they're just going to hold, and
Yeah.
then they're gonna hit and run, and then they're going to be either going back in or getting to shoot and go back in, or going off somewhere else and achieving a different goal for you. I like them, but and there's usually not a lot taking up your fast attack choices either in
I still
Heresy.
find it utterly bizarre that they didn't make javelins. They didn't,
In plastic,
seemingly.
yeah.
Yeah. I thought that would
At
be an
some point, I
obvious
think they
thing.
might,
Yeah.
but
I thought that, well, the fact that they refreshed the sponsons into the plastic suggests it's a way off if it is going to be a thing.
oh
But
yeah,
yeah, I'm surprised because I like them a lot and they seem
this is GW,
they're
mate.
quite
Things.
spenny, aren't they?
Oh yeah,
Yeah, true, true.
we also had an atmospheric condition thing, and we had an electrical discharge that was going off, which you had to place a small blast template and scatter it twice. So we weren't
Right.
sure if you scattered it twice, moved it around. It was a bit confusing. Like, do you scatter it twice to have two different ones, or do you scatter it and then scatter it again to see where it ends up? So
That's what I
wherever
would
you
have
place it,
assumed, but yeah,
yeah,
okay.
that's the way we played it. To get to land where you want it, you have to score 2
Yeah,
hits, that kind of thing. But
yeah.
I scored more double hits than him, so it was just
No.
pinging little things off.
Yeah.
Like it was useful actually. It was quite fun, but it wasn't OTT. Um, but yeah, no, it was a cracking game against Neil. He was a really sound guy. Really enjoyed that one.
That's a good game for first game in day 2. That's got to
Yeah,
feel good.
yeah, no, he's a fantastic guy. He's actually coming to the doubles event that we're going to with
Is
his
he? Oh,
brother,
cool.
and I think it's his birthday weekend that weekend.
Oh, right.
So yeah, that could be fun. We might have to challenge them on the Sunday because it might be an easy win.
Oh,
Depending
well,
how heavy
yeah.
the Saturday night is.
I just see what you're going with that. I thought it was a grudge match. No, no, no.
No,
Just
no, no.
take
Just
advantage of a terrible
yeah,
hangover. Yeah.
we'll treat you well.
Yeah, I mean,
oh,
you're making promises for me there that I might be letting the side down on that one.
oh yeah, I'll keep you in mind.
Keep me honest.
Um, And then table 4. This mission was about a key building in the center of the table, which the first unit that could score it, that entered it, would get a bonus rule, which became irrelevant in our game. But I played Chris Gent, so Chris is, I say, he was at my first ever event I ran, I think, like proper old school, and plays the game well, and
Right.
plays the game.
He knows his onions. Yeah.
Yeah, and not in a negative way, but he's a serious game player. Like
Yeah.
he knows what he's doing, and he tends to pick lists that do that. He said he toned this list down. He had Mechanicum, and he
Okay.
had 3 units of Thalax, a unit of Myrmidons with a character in it to give them all the cool rules. Some Secretary, some. What else did he have? Silax. He had an Atropos. He had the like non-contemptor thing that they can have, which is basically a contemptor with an extra wound and extra toughness, or maybe the same toughness. Either way, and some cool rules around it. And what else did he have? He had the not the Krios tank, the bigger one. I can't remember the name of the Kraknos,
Oh wow.
which is a super cool vehicle because it's got a large blast pinning weapon.
This
But
is the mortar thing, yeah.
yeah, it's -2 pinning, the
Right.
-2
Oh
leadership,
wow. That is
and
good.
then
Wow.
the I can't remember what it is. The automata that he has.
It's not the
That's
Thanatar.
got
Not it's
fear.
the one
No,
it's the one down from that. Oh,
yeah,
got
it's the
fear.
crazy one. It's got fear on it. So if you get that in range of where you're firing your Kraknos, you're getting -3 to your
Not
pinning
Vorax,
check.
is it?
No. It's bigger than that.
Bigger. Yeah, I
Yeah,
know
it's
the one
like
you
a
mean. The
contemptor
one that
size
is
thing.
the Iron Circle are based on.
No, no,
Oh,
he had two Domitars. It's
Domitars,
something
that's it.
else.
That's what I'm thinking
But
about.
either
Yeah.
way, so he had that as well, and then he had the upgrade. So the Atropos Chaos Knights. So in the night list, you can buy upgrades.
Yeah.
As far as I'm aware, and from what he said, loyalist knights can't if they're bought into a loyalist force, you can't buy them the upgrades if they're not from the knight household army.
That's
Like if you're
correct,
not
yeah.
paying
Yeah.
a main, but the traitor ones can. So they can
Curious.
basically take. There's
Okay.
a whip weapon which basically makes them extra weapon skill initiative, something like that. I think it's initiative.
There's
So
a well there was a what was it? Was it a PDF I thought that went out that allowed you to have slightly
yeah,
corrupted knights.
yeah,
Presumably
and
that's
you're
what this
allowed
is.
them in your traitor list. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
there's
okay.
a so the Atropos's weapon is known to be
Yeah,
lackluster for what you're paying for.
yes, yes.
That weapon just gives it that edge to make it worth buying.
Okay.
But the problem with the Atropos will come up. So essentially, this
How
is
did you feel sitting down and looking across and seeing a knight? Were
fine
you
because I thought
perturbed
the
by
rest of
that,
the
or
arm. No, I knew this game was over. As he explained what he had, I was like, okay, I'm playing a pretty balanced list with nothing. Like it relies fully on the deep striking stuff coming down, but
yeah?
the Thalax having Volkite. Sorry, the I think it was Volkite on the Myrmidons. He'd kind of toned that down, and being able to react, and Alex being a couldn't deploy within certain ranges. And
Yeah.
the one thing I knew about my army is like if I come up against a tank army, I haven't got much in the way of heavy shooting.
Hmm.
I'm relying on the vets to do a lot of work, that kind of stuff. So I was like, I need too many of my guns in too many places. He's got too much maneuverability. Just don't think I can win this game. But hey, we're going, and he went first, which made it even harder. Um, but certainly, yeah, it was Volkite because I thought, okay, if I summon my demons here and charge them and put them in the open, he uses reaction and kills my demons before they get to move.
Hmm.
So I did actually end up managing. So probably actually the defining factor of why I didn't think I could win this game. We were playing on a board that had a lot of terrain, but
Right.
very little line of sight blocking terrain.
Okay.
There was terrain everywhere, but you could see through most of it.
Okay.
So I couldn't hide from his big stuff. I was like, if Thalax are so maneuverable, they're really cool still. But if I could move up on them without getting shot, then
Hmm.
I can do stuff. I can catch them. But yeah, it wasn't going to happen. And this was all kind of highlighted by the fact that so he got first. The Atropos moves up. Cool, no worries. Let's try and shoot that. Actually, long range melt guns not doing a lot, but he can't react to me. Cool, yeah, I'll do that. Second turn, it moves up even further, and then you realise you have to go into it, but it's so close to my line that when it blows up,
Oh,
it kills everything.
wow. Okay. I didn't
It's
realise the explosions on those things were quite so vicious.
the Atropos is
Oh,
something
because
else.
it's a weapon of
Yeah.
destruction.
So
Yeah,
it's like every model within D6 plus 6 inches
yeah. Oof. Right.
takes like a mega hit.
Right.
it's hard to deal with, and because of the nature of the way the terrain was lined out, it yeah
It was a
it was
thing.
hard work.
Yeah,
It was just super hard work. His list was a level of magnitude higher than mine,
right.
and he's a good player as well. So it's not like
So he knew what he was doing with it. Yeah,
yeah. I mean, and literally, I can look down and go, okay, I'm in trouble here, and I didn't even come close to being able to touch him. I think called it on turn 4. I managed my just airing came down, got shot a lot, charged some Thalax, and then the Myrmidons came in, and there's just not a lot I can do at that point.
it's quite. I mean, if there is a positive turn, I'm quite encouraged to hear that Mechanicum
So,
are standing as well as they are. They
so
had
there
mixed
are,
things. They weren't great,
yeah.
although they were a challenging army to play.
So fundamentally, there are some good things about the Mechanicum. If you have tables which have lesser terrain, things like the Myrmidons Myrmidons are really good, non-stop, full stop. Um, Conversion
Non-stop.
beamers, yeah, non-stop. Conversion beamers on terrain on tables with not a huge amount of terrain. Myrmidons sit in the back fine. Conversion beamers is scary stuff.
Mm.
I've always had an issue with conversion beamers because the tables that I think we should be playing on most of the time shouldn't allow conversion beamers to be effective for much of the
Okay.
game.
Mm.
I think we play on too many tables that are too light on terrain, uh,
Okay.
personally. But you can stick Velkite on them and you can stick other weapons on them. They're still good,
Yeah.
and they're tough and they're strong. You can put an Archmagos with them who's got a 6-up toughness and 2-up save, and he can tank all the hits, like that kind of thing, and 3-up invulnerable, and it will not die. So you can do all that stuff as well. So there's things you can do. Alex are manoeuvrable and are good, particularly against smaller elite armies. You've got Rend on their lightning guns, things like that. You've got um, the Kraknos being able to pin stuff, super cool. Then you've got a lot of stuff that's actually really rubbish in the Mechanicum list.
Right.
The internal balance is the problem with the list. You have to
So there's some
lean in.
standouts, but
Yeah.
that's they
But to
really
be able to
do.
make a list, yeah, and then like to the point where it becomes, well, why would you take them? Because they are
Right.
that bad, you know. And then you've got the issue of how do you balance your list for an event?
Yeah.
Because
Okay.
the lists have always been strong.
Yeah.
So it is what it is. But Mechanicum have play in specific kind of builds. Um, but yeah, the Atropos going boom is,
It's a thing.
and
Yeah.
but it was all compounded because I couldn't move away from it because I was just moving into the open to get shot.
Yeah. Okay.
So like it's I didn't roll that well when I went into it with the dreadnought and stuff as well. So it got to then go into different places. But yeah, it was over fairly quickly. But it was fun. Not a terrible game by any stretch of the imagination.
Hmm.
But ultimately, my plan for the army to be able to bring stuff in and then and hold for a turn before then surging forwards. There were some tables that had some. Oh, there was one with there was there's another one or two with big buildings in the centre or big obstructions in the centre. I ended up 3 of my games playing on terrain that there was plenty of terrain, but there wasn't huge amounts of line side blocking terrain
Mm.
in like between us, as it were. They might have been sideways, so they weren't doing a huge amount of blocking. So I was a bit constrained by that, which was a bit of a shame for the way I wanted to play, but it's also fine.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
It also
Just
it
I
wasn't
made a plan,
so
and
impactful that it was a big deal.
no, I made a plan to play a style way, and I maybe misjudged it, or maybe just should have been more aware of when the matchups were being picked to
Mm.
try and go right. I need to be on one of those tables. Would be really cool to be able to do what I want to do. It wouldn't necessarily give me an auto win or anything like that. The vets with combi weapons, I was like, I didn't. I think if you're going to do that, you also need to double up their roll to be able to do other stuff as well. And I was ending up dropping in, going, "Cool, 5 metal guns. Okay, what do I do with them now?"
That's interesting because they used to be a really big deal. They used to be one of the things that was
There were a lot more
always
tanks.
recommended. Yeah,
There were a
yeah,
lot more
exactly.
tanks around, and there were
Do
big
you think
targets.
that's something that was of this event though, because of the
There
sort
were
of
so there
urban
was
nature of it?
there was a falchion in one
Oh, was there?
table.
Oh,
Yeah. There were a few tanks, but yeah, there were no Spartans. There were no so. But I was using them sometimes to shoot out dreads.
hmm.
But are they that good at that, really?
Yeah. I was going to say they're
One
not. That's
shot,
not
yeah.
ideal.
But again, that's what I had.
Yeah, yeah,
And then Terminators, because they can be useful with the strength 8 on that one.
yeah.
Um, and the plasma again, you've got to be within 12 to want to really unleash it. And how many you get? They were potentially, I could have done it with other squads, maybe taking support marines rather than if. To be honest, if Giles had rhinos, I would have had them in rhinos and
Hmm.
maybe support squads. But it is what it is. The environment, I say, it was interesting to see a falchion in a city fight
Yeah,
environment.
yeah. That surprises
Um,
me. Yeah.
quite quite restrictive. I don't know if there weren't really many restrictions on what you could build.
Were there was there more a legion or legions represented more than any other there, or is it
I mean,
fairly
there
widespread?
wasn't. Yeah, it's pretty widespread. Might have been a couple of Alpha Legion, a couple of Fists.
Hmm.
Trying to think, there were a couple of mech at least. Raven Guard one with all the Dark Furies, uh,
Right.
which was quite interesting to hear him complain about. Not complain, but I mean, oh, yeah, that army had all these and it wiped me off the board. And it's like, well, you bought a shed load of Dark Furies to an
Yeah.
environment where there could be a lot of combat. So, I'm not going to cry for you.
Yeah. They're pretty handy. Yeah.
Yeah,
You
that
weren't
kind of
terribly
thing.
disadvantaged. Yeah.
Yeah, so uh, it was what was really nice. So the loyalist won pretty healthily. This one won most games and played the map campaign better as well. But it was really nice to play a slightly different game. I think we've talked about this before with AT particularly, but variety is something I think needs to be in events. I think the
Hmm.
40k scene has very little. The variety is brought around when points change,
Hmm.
and I find it incredibly dull. Uh, as a
Interesting. Yeah.
I couldn't be a competitive 40k player and go and play the same event repeatedly,
Hmm. And the
with very
same,
minor change.
exactly the same format. Yeah, you're playing
Yeah,
essentially chess. Hmm.
yeah. Card games. I understand it that you haven't got those very even competitive wargaming. There's a story being told on the table.
Hmm.
It might not be, it might be the lightest of light stories, but it's still there. Certainly, the terrain for Orthan's Hope was super cool. He had lots of different tables. Yeah, I'll try and find the links to his others, for photos of
That
it.
is a big deal. I mean, the amount of work that goes into
A
creating
lot
that.
of
Anyone
work.
who's built terrain, that is
So,
such a volume of work. People must have appreciated that.
yeah, big time. Let's say Crest and the Hawkers terrain, huge buildings that are like I say a foot long. Um, the nice touch of some of the tables having slate poured and moved around to create, so it's not just a base of difficult terrain. There's like slate on the tables to soften
Oh, I
edges
really
and
like
things
that
like
when
that.
you
A
see that
classic,
done. Yeah,
yeah. Something that used to happen on the 30k channel
yes,
when
yeah.
the
We've
battle
done it in our
reports.
games at Stu's house. No, he used to do that as well. I think probably inspired by the same source.
Yeah, it's a really cool thing. So, say, the guys spent a long time building up tables to be able to do this and to make it look super cool. And then, as I say, to play into that other, create a slightly different style of wargaming, I
Mm,
think you could definitely go a step further with some of the restrictions on army builds. I don't think you want to go too hard though, because I think,
yeah.
or
That's a tough judgment, but yeah.
or to put in rules that apply to stuff like super heavies and things like that to
Mm-hmm.
maybe, I don't know. I mean, you had the Sunder if you had the height rule. I say the tables I played on, there weren't many opportunities to be 8 inches above something, the ground or
Mm-hmm.
something. But it is cool that you could get Sunder, so you can make sure those hits hurt. Um, but I haven't played in a long time group of games. Like, the fourth game wasn't a majorly fun game because of like lack of competitiveness on
Yeah.
my side of things, but the other three were fantastic games. Some real, great moments in them.
They sound like some real classic matchups in a few of those. I mean, like even just narratively, it was just the story tells itself almost, which is nice. That's a really cool place to be, and it sounds like it's a good group of people. So it's going to make that just flow that bit a little bit better, and that's even better when it's a game that you say, I'm going to come back into it, even if you haven't had a chance to have some practice games and sort of freshen up, which is not always possible by any stretch. That sounds like it couldn't have been better from that point of view.
No, it was super cool. Yeah, I like kind of came home with a bit of a push of a need to get more
That's
stuff
nice.
painted so I can take my own stuff. Like, what events can I go to? I'm a bit limited as to what I can get to with life and playing so many different systems and things like that. But
Are they
um,
doing it again? Is it intention
there
to do
is
more of these?
Orphan's Hope 6 has been announced.
Cool.
I don't know where he will have put all the details. The Orthan's Hope, Chapter 6, the Primordial. Oh, yeah, one thing I didn't mention, which is a pretty big thing actually for an event like this. When it's a small event, when you've got that much control, we put a lot of time into making videos of the story between
Oh, that's cool.
events. So you had a video playing with audio over the top based
Right.
on what was happening within that, um, within the fight in itself of what's going on. And then
Very nice.
at the end of the video, then playing out, showing you the scenario to be played in the next one as well, which is a lot of effort. Like, voice acting,
Yeah, I was going to say that.
dramatic images. It's the kind of thing you can only really do with the smaller events.
Yeah,
Chapter 6 is happening there's an event pack here, which will be up somewhere. I will link to the event pack actually in the show notes. I have to write a reminder to do
if
that.
nothing else, it's an interesting one to see.
Yeah, well, this is it again, right? So, 5 game event over 2 days, featuring 4
Ooh,
narrative-driven frontline games with an optional group zone Mortalis game in the evening. Where is it being held? Um, I think Curtain Games. Yeah, sorry, in Exeter.
that's
So,
disappointingly not London.
yeah, well, true.
It'd be a bit of a
Absolutely.
major swing for that.
Yeah, 3,000 point game. He's written all the background. He's kept, moving on. They say this is chapter 6 of
Mm,
an ongoing story, which is cool. So you feel like
that's really
you're
awesome.
part of something. And there are some limitations on what you can take, and no missions revealed, which I like. Like when you're having
Yeah,
narrative
agree.
going. I don't like the idea of you then
Tailoring.
tailoring.
Yeah,
Ooh, forces may get corrupted, and not all traitors will turn to the ruinous powers.
interesting.
Nice. Yeah, that's super cool. Loyalties will be tested. So I like
Mm,
this kind of stuff. It also makes me think about what am I going to do if I'm running events in the future, and
yeah,
2025 I want to be running an event. Need to
pretty.
make sure
It's
that,
pretty. That's a good sign of an event that if it's making you think, yeah, actually, I'm enjoying this. This is something I'd like to. It's inspiring you to do that kind of thing as well.
yeah, um, yeah, super cool. And everyone there was cool, was chill. It was a real good environment around it. It was great to meet, particularly Neil and Jamie. Um, always good to play people who listen to the show. And Jamie has some got some cool ideas moving forward, so we're in contact, and it'll be really good to see Neil at down in Eastbourne. So we
For
might
sure.
have to grudge them if they might be loyalist. Who knows? But we'll see if we can grudge them. I think
That would be great.
that'd be super cool. Anyway,
Cross events, yeah.
we took a long
Great.
one on this one, so we will take a break, and we'll come back. Okie dokie, so a bit more of a loose topic discussion in the second part of the show. We were throwing around some ideas, and you mentioned, what you put forward, talking about the Age of Darkness as a setting, the multiple games within that setting, how they relate, how they might link, and what we can hope for in the future, maybe look for in the future. So, okay, so what do we have now with the Age of Darkness setting? What games can we play?
I think it's quite a good time when we start thinking of this in almost getting into decades now.
Yep.
It feels like quite a good time to just have that conversation and say, well, what have we got now? Because it is a setting. I mean, it's been setting throughout, but it seems that there are a number of games now. What games are they? And if you were coming at it new or otherwise, you may not know about all of them. So we've got obviously Age of Darkness under the Horus Heresy banner, Warhammer the Horus Heresy. There is the Age of Darkness game, which is the 28mm. I mean, they don't use scales as a way of doing it. That's the main. Even that saying the main game, let's say, which is the sort of standard 40k and Age of Sigmar scale game. What else have we got? We've got Legions Imperialis is the one that's sort of most promoted at the moment, most prominent. Adeptus Titanicus and Aeronautica Imperialis Horus Heresy, which I think is still a current game, is it not?
Yeah.
Cautious, yes.
Yeah.
Aeronautica Imperialis as a 40k setting game, I think has
that stopped for sure.
Ceased to be, or in so much as you can't buy the full range. You can't buy the 40k era aircraft that used to be. So Eldar, Orcs, Tau. You can't purchase those box sets from Games Workshop anymore. Therefore, they are tricky to get a hold of. But the Heresy era aircraft, I think, are either available as Aeronautica Imperialis or are being progressively, I think they are being reboxed as Legions Imperialis.
If you go into Games Workshop's website and go into other games, there is no Aeronautica Imperialis.
Okay.
They still make the ships for Legions, the aircraft, but you can't buy a book.
Oh, you can't buy a book at all.
As far as I can see, well, the Aeronautica. Let's have a look.
That's interesting because I mean, because Adeptus Titanicus is listed there under other games.
Warhammer the Horus Heresy Aeronautica is temporarily out of stock. If you have to search for Aeronautica.
Interesting. I wonder which section that's under. Anyway, it's there, but it's temporarily out of stock. Okay.
Well, let's have a look, shall we?
There is a reason I mentioned it last.
I think it's just its own thing. Don't think it's under a airline, but there we go. Yeah, it's. Yeah. They're not worried about Aeronautica anymore.
No, that's
if they bring the book back. They might bring the book back, but the models are here for Legions. So,
feels like I wonder. Do you think they could? I mean, I haven't played. To my shame, I haven't played a game of Legions Imperialis. Legions Imperialis has a game mode, and we'll come to game modes in a second. Has a separate game mode now called Titan Death, which allows you to bring a large collection, typically, of Titans. It limits the game to just Titans and Knights, I think.
Yeah.
Do you think that would work with just an aircraft version?
Well, the problem you'd have to.
Not sure it would work in the same way.
I don't think there's enough variety. I think Aeronautica worked because it was all about the manoeuvring. So that was the whole point of Aeronautica. It wasn't about the guns, it was about flying planes.
Yes.
And to do that, you either need the hex kind of a mat with hexes or squares or whatever to create a movement, or you need the old style Aeronautica, which was cards that had movement patterns listed on them that
Yes.
restricted what you could or
Or you
couldn't
need
do.
sort of your movement apparatus. I think
Yes, like
there's a couple of the World War II games do that
yeah,
quite effectively, or
or
X-Wing,
Star
obviously.
Wars Armada
Yeah,
or
yeah.
X-wing or what have you. Yeah, you need something along those lines, which just don't think GW are going to put any effort into making
No,
because Aeronautica didn't sell that well. It was a
they
fun little
did.
game.
They did do a movement tool kind of thing with their orc racing game thing
Yeah,
that wasn't Gorka Walker um, a while ago. I don't see them doing that again. I mean, it's supposed to kill teams. Anyway, we digress. There's so those are the games that are technically available in the case of Aeronautica, but the others are you could go out and buy a rule box, and there are models supporting them. Those are the main games. There's then
you'd
after
have to
that
find a
there
mat
are
somewhere as well.
yeah
There are
for
third party ones, but yeah.
still tricky, isn't it? That's a very much a fringe one on that
I
list
mean,
of
I've got.
four
I think
games.
I've got one for sale. Can't imagine me playing anymore. So hit me up.
Well, and getting the official mats, I think, is now quite an expensive proposition because, like we are collectors, yeah,
I've got an airplane ticket, which now needs it's even more expensive to get to Adepticon than it was.
to
So
Milwaukee,
I need to pay
yeah,
that. Milwaukee, as Alice Cooper would say. But yeah, I think Aeronautica is yeah, unless you've got it.
it's very difficult now.
I mean, there's an argument with AT that AT's luckily
Well, I wonder.
AT is a game in and of itself that is set up, and you can still buy the book, and you can still buy the Titans, but how much support is he going to get as a game, as an ongoing concern?
There is
Unfortunately,
quite a range for that with
yeah,
Titanicus, isn't there? With all the Forge World weapons, you've got quite a lot of plastic kits which are transitioning to being Legion's boxes first, with an Adeptus Titanicus logo on the box. Honest,
yeah,
but
and
you
I
do get
think
the
they,
terminal in there.
for the foreseeable at least, I think we're going to be getting like when if they release a new weapon, you will get AT rules for it.
Mm.
Um, I think even I say like there's enough in AT that you could happily keep playing it. Like, do I
Yeah,
want more Titans? Yes. Uh, more than that, and I was thinking about this. Could they write a campaign book and not add maybe Titans or weapons, but add some scenarios and rules? Yeah. Um, are those people going to be working on that? I don't know. Could they please spend the time to just write a second edition?
mm.
I'd be, really happy if you could then collect all that information they've got, all the changes they make, put them all into one book, and just release a second edition book with nothing else, not as part of anything. I think everyone would buy it that plays AT, and there's still, it's a healthy number of people who play AT at the moment. Going
Mm.
forwards, who
With
knows?
no new
With no push,
potentially with no new intake. Yeah,
yeah, you have to push. Although, as we said, Allies system of Titans and Knights does potentially lead in. Like, I really hope they don't stop selling the
well, I mean, that
the rule
touches on
book because it's easy. It's an easy win to getting people to buy more Titans.
that touches on something I wanted to sort of to take that really that line of thinking is what do each of those games do well, because that
Sure.
particularly that overlap between what the Titan death mode of Legions Imperialis versus Titanics, we talked about this before, they serve very different purposes. You even said it there. Aeronautica Imperialis is about the maneuvering of aircraft, whereas
Yeah.
if you had just the aircraft from Legions Imperialis in an aircraft only mode, that would almost become a who blinks first, who activates first kind of thing. It wouldn't be about the maneuvering at all. It would simply be about placement. It'd be like, right, these guys are going first, I'm placing them here. And you'd be just trying to tease each other out and essentially just turn up into a mash in the middle. Not a particularly satisfying game in itself, because Legions Imperialis is primarily, it is a game about multi modes of combat, kind of a mixed arms combat game. Aircraft, Titans,
and you can
infantry,
get away
tanks,
with
etc.
you can get away with it with Titans because they have the
Yeah,
variety of weapons, the variety of
yeah,
Titans. They're bigger, they can absorb like more damage. You can get away with this light version. What do they call it?
yeah.
Titan Death. You can get away with
It's
that with
not
Titan Death.
exactly, and
There's enough meat on
it's
those
almost
bones.
like an apocalypse version. Like you simplify AT
Mm.
to the point where you can have multiple things and it's still fun, as opposed to just having loads of Titans. And the resource management aspect of AT wouldn't scale to the degree that you're talking about there. So it's scratching a different itch, that game mode. So the purpose of each game, or rather what each game does well, I think is an interesting thing. Where you've got Aeronautica dealt with the aircraft, Titanic has dealt with resource management and careful maneuvering. Totally different kind of thing to any of the others, really. Legions is the mixed arms. There's a better name for it than that, but I can't think what it is. Combined arms, is it? Combined arms combat.
It's also
Mm.
the war scale. So Age of
Yes,
Darkness is
agreed.
not a war scale game.
No.
It's a skirmish game, effectively, even with the larger
Mm.
vehicles and everything else, and the larger number of models. Legions Imperialis is your war game.
Which is,
Or
I
as
always
close to
loved
it.
it for that. The epic
Yeah,
scale, which I think is now called the epic system, isn't it? I love that game, that scale for the game. I think it describes what I have an image of, which the art evokes for me more effectively what that setting is all about. For me personally, it's not to say it is fundamentally better. It's just pure, utterly subjective thing. But I love that. I mean, the idea of seeing vehicles strung out over quite a large area evokes images I think of that kind of conflict. Whereas the parking lot image of a larger scale 28 mil game, it doesn't chime with me in quite the same way. And as you say, Age of Darkness is coming out of being skirmish, but is a very large format skirmish game, isn't it? And perhaps more of a character-driven thing because you can plow more effort into building your army and the character of your characters, etc. Which you're not going to do that in Legions.
yeah, no, absolutely. It's that honed in. Yeah, there's a certain amount of character of action movie
Yeah,
kind of narrowed down view. Uh,
yeah.
and then,
Which
I mean,
I
within
would be
that,
tempted to, yeah.
sorry, Karen.
Which I'd be tempted to say would go further with some of the game modes that you
Yeah,
can
that's
see.
exactly what I was going to say. Yeah,
Oh, sorry, you can in the same place, but
yeah. So,
I'm not sure it does it? Because actually, it's the units become
oh yeah,
as
but
significant more than characters.
small, well, smaller games, characters shine more.
Oh, yeah, fair enough. Yes.
Even with reduced characters, they have more ability to shine.
Yeah,
But
true.
ZM becomes your
Zone Mortalis
um,
for
yeah,
those who don't know the
so
acronym.
yeah, good shout. Zone Mortalis becomes your key mission, like how to describe it, I suppose. But yeah, that's your squad. Yeah, it is bigger than the squad, but that's your squad going in to achieve a goal. Obviously, it's more than one squad, but a smaller force with a specific task almost.
Yes.
And then you zoom out that little bit to Age of Darkness, and then
You're
again to
scaling
LR.
down some of the bigger
Yeah,
stuff, aren't you? With that, you're scaling down the vehicles. You're scaling
yeah.
down to just a particular type of infantry.
What's interesting is you put Centurion here. So Centurion's an unofficial
Yeah.
kind of mode. Originally, the Aussies came up with it in first edition as a way of harking back to second edition 40k, where a dreadnought was a big impressive thing, and a
Yeah.
Land Raider was wow. You bought a Land Raider, so you were restricted on vehicles, and it was all about the troops on the table rather than say your super heavies or your big tanks or
Yeah.
what have you. That's a slightly different scope in that. That's a stylistic approach as much as anything.
That's interesting. Because I've misinterpreted what that is then, because I had understood that to be almost a game mode that favoured slightly smaller games. It kind of
It was slightly
does,
smaller because
perhaps,
it
but
was
yeah,
infantry focused,
yeah,
but
exactly, yeah,
essentially it was born out of desire, multiple desires, as far as I'm aware. And I could be getting this a little bit wrong, to have infantry be important tac squads, things like that, but
mm,
also as a harking back to, as I say, like if you picked up a white dwarf from, I don't know, issue 90. I try and think. My first white dwarf that I owned, I think, was the Captain Tycho Blood Angels versus Orc
okay,
battle report, where you had 40 Space Marines, if that, on a table, and a Rhino and a Dreadnought.
yeah,
Um, and the Orcs had, 80 Orcs and a
yeah,
Death Dread, or not even a Death Dread, a Dread, yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
And of those 80 orcs,
yeah.
40 were Gretchen.
Yeah, exactly, that kind of thing. So it's a hark back to that where you had one or two rhinos rather than everyone having a rhino.
Yeah,
That kind of stuff, which
you tended to have
came
the
in
one
later on in
transport.
second.
Yeah,
But
you
back to
tended to
your
only have one of any vehicle. Mm,
early '90s, mid '90s White Dwarf
mm,
kind of battle reports. So yeah, but it does, and it changes the game and does different things, which is again we talk about keeping things fresh. Like sometimes you want to get the big toys out, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you want to tell a kind of more specific, honed story. Sometimes you want to do Inglorious Bastards, and sometimes you want to do
mm.
Saving Private Ryan. I, you know,
I think
that's an aspect.
that's particularly interesting if you were, I mean, coming off the discussion about the event you were at, running events and telling a story, narrative events particularly, having more tools in the box than I've changed up the terrain or changed up the mission. I mean, obviously, it becomes more complicated if you're having to bring multiple armies. Oh no, bringing an army for a couple of systems, but amongst a group of friends or amongst a club, for example, you could then you've got the tool then potentially to tell different stories, haven't you? With you where you've got the large scale, or maybe some people are having an agent. Particularly if you had a bigger event where you've got multiple systems happening, you could have one type of mission with a system that's better suited to that to tell that story, and then a larger scale conflict being described over there by people who are playing this game.
Oh,
It just gives you
absolutely.
more tools, doesn't it? Which it sounds
Yeah.
kind of exciting.
So things like starting with a Zone Mortalis fight, which reveals something which allows you to
Mm,
step up the forces involved, going into a Centurion, which as they're waiting for backup to arrive to then lead into full-blown Age of Darkness games.
mm, mm,
That kind of thing can absolutely be done. What it also does is allow you, just on a practical level, you've got X amount of time in a weekend, and you don't want to squeeze in 5 games of full Age of Darkness at 3,000 points. Cool. Well, you have 2 games at 3,000 points day one in the middle at 1,500
mm,
with
mm.
more restrictive, say Centurion style restrictions on it. So it's a quicker game.
Yeah,
Um, that allows you to still get plenty of gaming in over a day. Done that before.
yeah.
Multiple point systems. Also, again, just changes things up. Mixes. Some legions will be better. Some units are better at different points values. Some legions might be better at different points values,
Mm.
which is always good to see.
You mentioned the sort of early 90s, mid 90s battle reports there. Continuing that line of thinking, and now that we've got a staple of, like, if you like, a stable of games set in the Age of Darkness, how would that compare? Because we were referring to 40k there. How would you compare now the games that we've got with other systems from that kind of from the back catalogue, if you like, going back to an earlier era or just whatever point over the last 20, 30 years? 40k, the old world, they've had quite a few games in different scales. How do you see that comparing with what we have now?
I mean, I don't think it's that much different. I think if you're taking the mainline games of 40k and Warhammer Fantasy as your baseline. Fantasy had War Master for a period of time. 40k had Epic or Space Marine. Those are alive in Legions Imperialis.
They are true, actually.
But it's a direct correspondence. Your Mordheim / Necromunda is quite a different thing because it's very much a campaign-based squad-sized game, which doesn't really exist for Age of Darkness. There were in previous editions of those games kill team 30k rules, things like that. It doesn't. I know that's a lie. I was going to say it doesn't really resemble what you can
Did
do.
they ever exist? Did they ever exist as an official game? Yeah, okay,
No.
there we go. No, okay.
What would be amazing?
Kill Team as a name has evolved beyond it a
yes,
lot.
it was a very different thing back in the day.
What was it? There was 40k in 40
40
minutes,
yeah,
which became Kill Team.
Yeah. So you had that. So what you haven't got is a BFG, a Man of War equivalent. But over the next 2 years, if you said, £100 they're going to make a BFG game, I wouldn't take you up on that bet because I pretty much believe that it's very, very possible.
Yeah, given the track record with everything else, it wouldn't be beyond a stretch. Yeah, exactly.
Maybe with the way things are going at the moment, slightly less likely with them contracting lines, things like that. But maybe as a splash release, maybe as a Space Hulk style big box release, you could do it. Who knows?
Yes. Does it compete too much with the sort of game space that Titanicus takes up, and we're not seeing that promoted, shall we say, and sort of supported in quite the same way? So does it?
Or are we seeing? Yeah. Are we not seeing AT because the similar team are working on something else? I mean, who knows? Like we don't know from the outside looking in. Genuinely don't know.
There is. So, I mean, BFG is a game that has been community supported for many, many years with people tweaking rules, and it all it can get complicated if you start delving into that too much. But it is still played. Very hard to get the models, obvious reasons.
I would say that a well-organized community project that has rule sets that are manicured and that by that community sometimes have a louder voice online than the community itself does. How many people are really playing Epic?
Oh, very few. I think
a small percentage
with
of the people who play, because I mean, we're talking about like particularly 30k Gothic. There's people who play Gothic. There's people who play 30k Gothic. As a proportion of the pie of people who play even Age of Darkness, how big's that pie?
Yeah, I mean, talk about a niche of a niche of a niche, but but it's the number of people who that seems to have risen. There is a larger number of people talking about that for Heresy 30k. Now, why that is, I'm not sure. Maybe they've been exposed to Heresy as a setting more, and they wanted to play.
A lot of them are in their early 40s.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe.
Yeah.
And played Gothic when it came out, and have their nostalgia specs on to think that the rule set is really cool.
But why play? Why play? But why play Heresy Gothic
because they're in their
regular
40s,
Gothic?
And because a lot of like the demographic of Age of Darkness to 40k,
gotcha.
The problem is all the words are kind of negative towards 40k, but there is a certain amount of people who have longevity in the hobby who maybe move away from 40k for one or various reasons. And this is not obviously not a blanket statement, but we see a fresher audience now in Heresy than we used to. But and certainly that Heresy 1 was resin models, expensive models, harder to work with models. A little bit of the we're cooler than you because we play Heresy,
we've had to work harder for this, so
but also
there's an element, isn't it?
We're playing the niche game. People who play the niche game also play the other niche game. Shocker.
Yeah, the even more niche game, yeah, and even more so. I mean, it's a game that's lent itself to people developing 3D modeling skills and then having a printer that
3D
they run themselves.
printers, yeah.
That whole separate hobby that is
Which,
lends
although
itself very well to that.
it's quite prevalent in, not quite prevalent, is there in 40k. I'd be interested to see if there was a high proportion of 30k players, because again, there's a lot of 30k players who, let's face it, don't necessarily want to pay the prices of resin models, who may have
Mm,
jumped into looking into that aspect of 3D printing before now
yes,
as well.
as an
So
alternative rather than
all
anything
that
else.
set
Yeah,
up. So yeah, I think there's
agree.
possibly a lot of factors in that.
But that was interesting that principle of a setting being described across multiple games. And your point there about Necromunda and Mordheim being slightly different, because I mean, particularly in the case of Necromunda, that's what I know, Mike, of Track of Words, when talking about the sort of the books that describe those. That's domestic 40k.
Yes,
That's a different setting. It's not open conflict with militaries. It's gang warfare. It's urban
the
conflict,
fundamental.
civil.
If you talk to anyone about Mordheim and Necromunda, um, even back to original. Well, I mean, Mordheim's not had an update, but original Necromunda. The reason you talk about Necromunda is your gang and its progression, and that progression is more limited in a heresy setting. What you
Mm,
can have is, because you have to fight other gangs,
yeah.
right? So what you can have is competing like small war bands in
Mm,
heresy, absolutely. But to have those regularly fighting each other seems a little bit
mm,
more of a
mm,
stretch. Having war bands fighting and other war band, fine, because you can do, you know, small out of the way kind of. Oh yeah, by the way, you guys go off and secure that, beacon. Cool. 30 guys or 10 guys from here and 10 guys from there went to do it because they were splinter force of a splinter force. But to get the same ones fighting each other and then to progress with them becomes a much harder thing to do. Whereas Necromunda, particularly original, was you were in one spire. Mordheim,
mm,
you're in one city. You are in
mm.
one place. So you're not. There's not this overarching need to go and conquer terror that is in Heresy.
Yeah, it's a harder translation, isn't it? That
Mm.
of that one. I mean, you could add a slightly bit of a stretch, but you could see it. I mean, I'm trying to think of it. One of the features of that game style is if your gang can basically say there's a group of 8 of you, you could fight any of the other 7.
Yeah.
That doesn't translate quite as well
No.
narratively into a heresy setting. Now you could do it so that you've got loyalists versus traitors, a 4v4. You can pick any one of the 4 traitors and challenge them for a game and territory. You could have that describing a larger war, for example, taking over a year worth of conflict and beat a garden or something like that. I can see that being, but it feels like a bit of a stretch compared to that.
There was
There isn't a domestic side of this that
no.
perhaps
There
I
was
mean you
a
could do,
game.
I suppose.
There was a game mode that was smaller than Kill Team, where you had individual. What was that other
Yes, and it's
game
been
mode
sort of
called for
subsumed
40k?
into it, hasn't it? Yes, there
Yeah,
was. I remember that. An
and there
individual.
were
They broke down into units.
individual
Yeah,
models. Yeah, there was there was a 30k equivalent of that, which
was
was
there?
which was fine, but had some big like Uber issues with like some people being
Right.
able to rule the roost. Um, and that would be called some form of thing where you could break it down to these kill teams having missions, but they wouldn't be able to be linked in the same way. Like,
That.
sending the 10 guys off to, particularly you could think like when you're talking about the compliance of, not compliance of worlds, but when Horus turns and all of a sudden you've got these worlds calling for traitor or loyalist and actually sending 7 guys
Mm-mm.
in to try and
Envoys. Mm,
convince the governor to change or what have you,
mm.
and having to fight their way through, like, like to send the message home would be a really cool thing. But it would
Because
have
there
to
are quite
be
a few.
it would have to be more like Space Hulk in terms of there are
Yeah,
missions
yeah.
and you can tell one story through, like a lot of board games do now. Actually, that there's a progression of a story through, and you maybe have different story modules to do, but you're very much like I'm playing the attacker, you're playing the defender through
That's
this
a
fight
really interesting
game.
idea for a game because then you said that given the upsurge in board game popularity, there must be a board game that almost describes like corporate battles and things. You know, it's a
Oh,
classic
for
cyberpunk
sure.
thing, isn't it?
Yeah,
The
yeah,
industrial espionage. The idea of that, like an asymmetric game where you've got two factions trying to convince a third faction
yeah.
to go one way or the other, but not trying to do it not without open conflict would be really
I mean,
interesting.
obviously, to be a miniatures game, there has to be the conflict. So it'd be more about we've got to fight our way into, like, the governor won't do it until we send home the message that you have to do it, or we replace
Yeah,
him. So we have to, fighting through the spaceport and get away from this bit to then fight into that to eventually get to the governor's palace to
yeah.
assassinate the governor, that kind of thing. But
Interesting. But there's, I mean, it does feel like the thing that is missing partly because it didn't tend to exist in that earlier era of games, if we could put it in that way. Um, Kill Team is a relatively recent development, even though it's probably been
mm,
around for probably 15 years. That to me is the one that would translate most effectively to the Age of Darkness setting, which we don't currently have something for. Like Kill Team Age of Darkness or Kill Team Horus Heresy would be quite cool. We talked recently when we met up about things like Underworlds as well, which is another relatively recent development. Although again, that's probably been around 10 years for all I know. That would be, I think, a trickier translation. It's a
I
very
think
different type of game.
even Kill Team, you're restricted by 2/3 factions, and you're a little bit restricted. I mean, what they don't seem to want to do with Heresy is fine is to tell the outside story of the Heresy of how it interacts with the other races, and I get it and I understand it, and I think they're probably right to do so. What I would think you would have to do for something like Kill Team would be to have the fringe elements of the main combat interacting with other races, because otherwise it all comes down to you're the enemy, I must kill you. Like, even if I'm achieving this
Mm,
goal, I'm doing it to kill the enemy of one of two sides.
yeah.
Your black shields throw a little thing into the mix there. Um, would be really cool to have like a black shield thing where actually they don't care about like the heresy beyond they don't want to die, and they're trying to carve out like an area of space which ends up with them having to bump into the Eldar and bump into the
Mm,
um, orcs and bump into whoever. Could be an interesting thing, but yeah, I think they're an awkward one for the heresy to be prime and centre for.
mm. Which is a shame because having played some Kill Team relatively recently, that importance and significance of individual models and the characters
Hmm.
that could the stories that you tell on that just seems something that is
I
harder
think
to do in this.
I think
Then
the
maybe that's fine.
say
Mm,
the way I would do that is I would the same as Kill Team, the same as those other ones. I would have a set game where you are, you know, even something. Okay, so here's a specific one. You could, and this because board games do this. Like, you will have specific stories under one heading, so you have multiples of them. So you build your Space Wolf, whatever squad that Russ took in to the Vengeful Spirit to lay the runes down to guide the path,
mm. Oh yeah,
and you
yeah,
could play through the various aspects of the Vengeful Spirit trying to achieve the goal of marking the route. And that
yeah.
way you can
Okay.
have individual characters who work differently, um, and you can have enemies, but like their story's only going to go so far because the rest of the time they're going to be fighting in a battle to kill an enemy.
Mm, mm,
So you can have things like that, or the squad that's, as I say, the squad that's sent in to assassinate someone, or the squad that's sent in to rescue someone, or what have you. But the conflict is less. It's less granular, like the actual conflict, and there's fewer antagonists to pick from.
On the basis that a legion isn't a faction per se.
Yes.
It's traitor loyalist, and
They're
it's
too
harder
big.
to differentiate because of the broad, in the way that you're talking about, are you defining kind of objectives or a narrative objective? The loyalists are going to be very similar, whereas
I mean,
so therefore they might as well be considered a faction.
Yeah, ultimately, with loyalists and traitors, their goal is to kill the enemy, to win the battle. Whereas Necromunda, Underworlds, or whatever, it's not necessarily that. Like that, they might be beyond that kind of aspect, because it's either unachievable for who they are, or because it's not what they're into. Like they're into survival and creating their expanding the boundaries of their gang. What is interesting is you wrote about Gore Chosen now, in a specific environment where something that is a bit different, and you're taking something that actually is from pre-heresy, because you're taking it from the Great Crusades, but having the fighting pits, the World Eaters of the Conqueror, and using the Gore Chosen, which is a small box game of 4 pit fighters. Cool. That's easy enough, isn't it? Fighting pits of the Conqueror, you might be chained to each other, but essentially it's combat between.
Yeah. We've
Without
played
guns,
that.
with
We
a
used to take
specific.
that
Yeah.
to weekenders and play in the evening. I mean, take it to the heresy and weekends. We were just looking at it, thinking we really should do a conversion of this, where you just make up your own character, even just using exactly the same rules. Just make up your own little player card or model card thing, and just say, "Well, that's Khan now, and that's Sigismund, and that's
goal,
this." Ideal.
The goal of that game is removed from the Greater Heresy. The goal of that game is to be the best fighter in that fighting pit.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay.
I'll tell you one thing that could be really interesting, possibly as a non-miniature game, as a third-party board game. I wonder if you can guess the faction that I think I've could make an awesome game. I'll give you one guess at a faction, a specific faction from the Heresy.
With no clues.
No clues. No
Just a
clues.
faction.
Faction.
I mean, Assassins is obvious, but it's faction.
Close. Assassins. Similar. Okay, there's one short story.
Yeah, okay, carry on.
Greater lore, because it's used in modern day codexes, that would make potentially an amazing board game, particularly
Blood games.
Blood games.
Perfect. Yeah.
Like, have you ever played the Horus Heresy board game?
Yes.
Modern one, right?
Goodness me, it's a commitment.
It's a commitment, and every time I've played it, I've had to relearn the rules. But it's a fantastic game. I've got a copy of it.
It is.
Imagine there are multiple ways to win that game.
Yeah.
Imagine having a palace and having to find different ways to get in. Would be really cool. It wouldn't be unnecessarily a miniature game.
This is why I also put down Warhammer Quest, Horus Heresy, a dungeon crawler or something similar there. I could see that being a thing. I mean, Warhammer Quest, Horus Heresy, the first one being sort of the Bacillo foe. Every time they were running through a lab or something like that, or even other things with the Astartes and things. I could see that being a setting. But it gets quite specific, I suppose. It gets quite specific to a specific event rather than a setting, wouldn't it? But we're talking more in board games now, aren't we?
I think you have to. The Heresy is a 7.5-year period of fighting, where the traitors are trying to get across the galaxy to fight on Terra. So I think you have to pick out very specifics because there isn't that grander. Because the heresy combat of that is all encompassing. It's
Mm.
yeah, the stuff did happen around it, but it it's so encompassed within these to the point where other races just forgotten about, didn't get involved, and when you know what, we can't achieve anything. But being able to pick out an aspect like I came up with one then, and I can't remember it now, but right, having a specific a limited area miniatures game of the Saturnine Gambit.
Mm. Mm.
So literally having a floor plan of the multiple chambers and playing it out a little bit like Betrayal at Calth or Prospero, and having set
Mm.
forces
Mm-hmm.
and playing out, and the different scenarios being that actually, okay, in this one, you know, um, the Just Aaron came up where they weren't expected to, and you know you get to this person was out of position, and what have you, to play a limited area board game with miniatures to fight that out, a bit
Yeah.
like Barlin's Tomb for
I was
Lord of the
just thinking
Rings.
of that one. I'm just thinking that
Yeah,
was a more contemporary version because I mean you mentioned a good one there, Betrayal at Calth.
yeah,
Betrayal at Calth or Arcology War or do something extended like that. But Betrayal at Calth
yeah. I mean that's a good
was
one.
a
Yeah, you can do that.
really fun game. The
Yeah,
thinking that had gone into that one. I mean, James Hewitt did it as an early project he did at Games Workshop and went on to do Titanicus and Necromunda and similar. And it obviously is his own games team now. But that the thinking that went into that to say, hey, we're going to have a first mission that's got to make you really sort of sit up and take notice. So you're going to have some guys sprinting for, they're not going to aim to kill each other. If it speaks to your specific point, the aim is not to kill each other. The aim, you might do that along the way. There's
mm,
nothing stopping you doing that. But the objective is to get guys through the doors before the
yeah.
sun burns the ground.
And
Anyway,
your
brilliant.
mechanics are almost irrelevant, but
Yeah,
Betrayal at Calth is a great example of kind of what I mean, actually. Here's a specific story. Here are
yeah,
the specific people involved, and here is a um, 6, 7, whatever game narrative playthrough of that.
yeah.
I think that would be the way to do it. And I'd like to see
And
some
interesting
like
that
third
that came
parties.
around. Yeah, I agree with you. It feels like that's a third party
Yeah,
place now. I don't see GW doing that anytime soon as a thing because I mean, that Betrayal at Calth obviously was the first time we'd seen what have now become these kind of army boxes or battle group or
mm,
battle force boxes, which are limited releases. They're not going to fill those with cardboard and a
no,
game which a
especially
lot of people were just putting it all one to one side to just
no.
get at the models at a really good value at the time.
But what
Now
we
days have been replaced, but which is a shame because we're not going to see those games. But I mean,
but we
it's a
are
different kind of
seeing
thing.
collaborations, particularly in America, where you've got
Oh
things
yes,
like
yes,
or you've got the Tyranids versus the Scouts game.
yeah. Which was a whole separate game back in
Yeah,
the
which
day.
is yeah. So you've got these individual kind of things, which would be great to see a collaboration to work like that, and to look into the law and find that one conflict. Um, as I say, that's got this narrow focus,
Mm,
which has got a driven story through, and you can do the Crusades as well, obviously, um, through that. Um, and to play that out, I think that's where you're looking. I think Battlefleet Gothic is very much an option. And I
yes,
say I wouldn't be surprised if it came out in the next 2 years. Not saying it will, but it wouldn't surprise me at all if it did. I mean,
yes.
we
That's
know
at the
that
staple.
Tony, God
Mm.
blimey, how many years ago did Tony talk about the desire to do? Like, if we did Battlefleet Gothic, it would be Battlefleet Heresy. Yeah, the
And it would
Solar
be
War.
bigger scale, and it would be this, and
Yeah.
yeah, they had ideas behind it. It
Oh,
would be
sure. And
you'd
Tony's
scale up
still
the
there.
ships and
Like,
stuff.
whether it happens or not, who knows? But I'm sure there is still a desire to want to do that. Um,
Well, it's got that benefit as well of a relatively a bit like Titanicus. You
oh,
can have relatively few kits actually can work quite hard,
oh yeah, big
because
time.
you've got that because it's a civil war. The same reason they did heresy that kind of exists in the first place for the Titanicus setup. Oh, we only need one. You just paint them different colours. Rather than two lots of models, you could do that very comfortably with Battlefleet Gothic again. You don't even need necessarily the two cruisers that were in the original game. In the 40k setting, you could just have one cruiser, one sort of frigate style ship, and maybe one battleship, entirely replicating what Titanicus does with the Warlord, Reaver, and Warhound. And away you go.
Yeah.
You can make
To make
fleets
it
that way.
work, you need a handful of ships on each side, and then some resin specific ships, maybe a few Glorianas or whatever. Cool.
Cool, yeah. But that to me is the obvious one in terms of tabletop games. You kind of they're kind of at either ends of the scale, aren't they? The absolute micro scale of, well, rather macro scale of that is Battlefleet, got a Battlefleet type game, through to the micro scale of a kill team or something like that. In terms of types of game that they put out as a tabletop game that they do under their own auspices, those are ones that would be obvious, that would give us more tools to tell stories beyond the games we already have. You take it into space, you can do the linked games ones I did when I was much younger, of right, a fleet has turned up in system, we're going to have a couple of space fleet type games or Battlefleet games to try and land troops on the planet. Depending on how successful that is, has a direct effect on the epic game that we play as a planetfall game.
Yeah.
And then on you go with other scales from there. That isn't something that's terribly easy to do at the moment. That would be great. And I'm here I'm speculating on what we'd quite like to see. I'd love to see a Gothic game because I love that kind of scale. The other end of the scale, you go down to that small scale of kill team, which we've already talked about.
What, again, talking about partnering up, the Grey Knights offer a really cool thing to have a one model versus a handful of models in a specific mission environment.
Grey Knights?
No, Grey Knights, the Knights Errant.
Got you. Right. Yeah. The Knights in Grey. Yes.
Knights in Grey. The Grey Knights.
Yes.
I mean,
yes, absolutely. The Knights Errant. Yeah,
Grey
absolutely. Knights. A set of missions. Yeah. I mean, that's the sort of the talons of the Emperor, isn't it? That sort of thing. Obviously, that's specifically referring to custodians and sisters. But
the agents of Malkador.
Agents of the Emperor. Yeah, and Malkador. Yeah. There's agents of Sigilites
because they were the Shadow War. As a kind of concept, he sent out people to do jobs, to do very specific jobs.
Yeah.
And that could be, I mean, blimey, that could be sending out, people to get STCs off of planets to, very, very specific roles that they were given. I mean, you only have to look at Rubio being collected, like he went into Calth to get Rubio. That was it. Like, nope, you're the one that's going to help this. You're off, son. It cuts through a lot of the noise around it that would drag a lot of games down.
And I feel like a little one of those little games that they sell in the Barnes and Nobles and so on, which I still find confounding that they don't sell that in more territories, and they typically only seem to sell them in Germany and the US, which makes it really difficult to get copies. I mean, I've imported a copy of Combat Arena when it was around, because I enjoyed Gore Chosen so much. But I mean, that sort of scale of game that's in a box roughly the size of an Underworld's box seems to be work more, because they had a whole series of 40k games, didn't they, where they had that, where there was, what was it, Execution Force and similar types of game like that, which you would sort of, that mechanic could port over, but the game almost was too big, whereas there's something, you want something a bit smaller. But I just think that's something I can play in a pub, basically.
The problem is limiting it to the heresy, having it that specific a story becomes, is it then marketable outside of that? So, but I'm sure there is a happy medium there somewhere where you could have one or two of those.
If it was an intro game to the setting, then it's sort of appealing.
Yeah.
But unless you're going to sell 100,000 of them, are you going to do it?
Yeah, exactly. So it needs to be all balanced up. But it would be cool to see.
It would. We're speculating, aren't we, of what we'd like to see. But I mean, they're just sort of looking at ways, I think we're in an interesting period now that we can talk about a setting that is being described across multiple game systems, and that's kind of cool. It's happened before. We compare and contrast with those periods, and
Well,
therefore can extrapolate out what we'd like to see.
and that's the negative side, right? Like, is AT going to be supported moving forwards? Um,
Mm-hmm.
you know, if Battlefleet Gothic comes out or Battlefleet Heresy, how much support does it get? Is it then pushed to the wayside if it doesn't sell enough? And then, you know, who knows? Like, is Epic going to be able to sustain that and be sold indefinitely? Is it going to be a Blood Bowl, or is it going to be
Mm.
an Aeronautica Imperialis?
Mm.
Um, I would hope, and it seems to be doing well, and there seems to be a lot of buzz about it.
Yeah,
Certainly
I mean
hard
that's
to get some of the models.
kind of topical, isn't it? Because there was that silly set of rumours that was rumbling around that was quite quickly jumped on as being false or made up in some way. But I mean, it just has an effect where if people's confidence in something is starting to shake,
Yeah,
um,
well, I mean,
then
Games
you're not going
Workshop
to go there.
haven't
But I mean, who knows?
in times like Games Workshop haven't always made it um, easy to trust them, shall we say,
Mm.
on those
Mm.
kind of things. It's not always been fair like that, so it's tough. It is tough, but I think the thing is, like, say with AT, say they never do anything for AT again. We have got that information we're in a position now that we weren't in the 90s, like where you had to try and find the website where it was and print out a
Yeah,
whole
yeah, good
book
point.
to have it and all that. Well, good luck trying to delete something off the internet. And with the
Yeah,
nature of 3D printers and all these independent casters and things like that, there are, I only have to look at Blood Bowl and the way that was an interesting community, shall we say? But the way that they were like, "Oh, GW's dead, fine, whatever. We'll do our own thing. We'll update the rule book a little bit. We'll create." The Slan team is hello, Magnus. The Slan team is considered legal in most events, but it's not a GW team,
that's interesting, isn't it?
and
That's
isn't
interesting that it
legal
exists
there.
like that.
But it's just accepted within that community that generally it's fine. And then there are just hundreds of third parties who are putting out teams to variety level of of quality. But if you want to play Blood Bowl and you don't want anything to do with GW, you can kind of do it rightly or wrongly.
That is probably the best example of something where it's continued and arguably thrived in a period where it wasn't getting official support, and I do air quotes there, which are not helpful in an audio. But the other one, there are plenty of others. I mean, I used to play a card game called Netrunner by Fantasy Flight,
Yeah,
and that virtually died overnight when they announced, "Oh, we're not doing any more expansions for that." They had this fairly rigorous thing where they'd release packs and it would change up the game fairly frequently.
mm.
Them announcing that wasn't going forward, the community sort of despaired instantly and turned their attentions elsewhere. However, a group of people kept it going, and actually, it did continue on quite well. You could argue Battlefleet Gothic's kind of similar. It's just not. It was a bit more fragmented,
Much
but
smaller. Yeah.
companies have group. There are companies now. It's fairly easy to find a range of companies selling ships that can be used for that
Mm.
game. Yeah, I think there, as you say, even if certain games, we're in a different era now. It's easier to find people who are going to be playing those sorts of games and enjoy them enough to hopefully put on even events if we
Well,
don't
that's
see an
that's the
expansion.
thing, right? Because it's not the year or two after it stops. It's 10 years down the line.
Yeah, yeah,
Where's your fresh blood? Because this
yeah.
problem happened with Ninth Age when Warhammer 8th edition got the end times, and people were
Mm.
like, right, we're going to start our own edition, and I'm like, you can't even buy the book. Even when they had a book, I was like, I can't walk into a shop and buy the book, and they're like, well, what's the problem with that? And I'm like, well, the problem with that is, where's your fresh blood?
Yeah.
Because you will lose players through a myriad of reasons. People will walk away, and I'm sure you will get new players, but how many are you getting?
Mm.
Because it's not people don't know about you. And there are ninth age players still playing. Cool, crack on, whatever. But don't know many now. Like, people walk away from it because it's hard to do. Which I think is interesting when people start their own companies. They say, oh, it's really hard to know how much to release and how often to release it and keep the quality up and everything else. But yeah, you've got to be obvious. Blood Bowl had such a strong gaming community that you would see it in stores, you would see it in pubs and gaming clubs, and it's a really easy one to keep fresh as well. I think that's a major thing. Like, oh, our event is 1150 buy-in with this skill package. Okay, cool. Our event is 1200 with this package. Okay, our event is like da 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 da. So there's so much, and there seems to be a willingness to do that as well, even amongst the harder core. And maybe it leans a little bit more towards the Magic kind of happy to have more of a settled format as well. Maybe there's
also perhaps it also revolves more around events. You're playing that in a group event. It's less likely
it's
to be a couple of
leagues,
people
and
playing, isn't it? It's groups of 20, it's
or
groups of
tournaments,
30, it's groups of 500 in the case of some of those bigger events. But you know what I mean?
self-generating kind of thing.
Yeah, you're playing in those kinds of games, and it's sort of exactly. The community around that is particularly strong because it sort of supports immediately that, which you could argue is also true of your Necromunders and your Mordheims.
Yeah, awesome. I think
An interesting topic, I think, but I think that's probably. I think we've covered all the points I have come up with about that.
Oh yeah, let us know. Let us feel free to chuck some thoughts and some.
And all the budding games designers get involved, dive in, and we can start creating all our own interesting, weirdly specific game modes.
Indeed,
Good
awesome
stuff.
Yeah. Well, thank you for listening to another episode of the Imperial Truth podcast. As we said, next episode is our 10-year anniversary. So if you have any ideas, have any feedback, have anything about that, then please send it over. If you have any general feedback about the show, any topics to do, any whatever it is that you want to get in touch with the show, you can reach us at greg@theimperialtruth.com. We're on Twitter at imperial_truth. I'm on Instagram and Twitter at Child of Fang. You can use Facebook. Go and find the page there. All these links are in the show notes as normal. But definitely, if you've got any ideas for segments going forwards, anything like that, we always put it out there. Then please let us know. Particularly like something like, did you enjoy this segment today? If you want to leave us a review on your podcast app of choice or whatever it is, whether it's iTunes or Spotify or whatever, you can find us all over the place there. And as I said, the YouTube podcast is now up and running. I will try and remember to change the show notes to put those links in there, but I'm sure if you search up on YouTube, it will appear. Obviously, there's no video footage there. It is what it is. It's what we could do to get it on there. So, I'm just not built to do it another way. Unfortunately, I'd love to be like one of those other channels and record live, but without major changes to basically our lifestyle and people involved. It would involve getting a third person in just to handle all of that, really. So, not necessarily feasible at the moment, but hopefully you still enjoy us as audio content. If you've made it this far, then there'll be some suggestion that you have for sure. Otherwise, you're mad. So yeah, next episode we hopefully, I say it depends on timings as to whether we can record anything that happened at Eastbourne. If I delay it a day or two, maybe we can do that. But I'm sure we'll have plenty to talk about. There's always something to talk about, right? Okay, the merch link might not be working as you listen to this. I think I've got to go in and there were some changes with that, so I'll have to do that. So, on the off chance that anyone was looking at doing that, then please bear with me. I'll try and get that sorted. I'm not sure what else there is to talk about, so you know what? I'm not going to bother. Let's leave it there. Until next time, you have been listening to The Imperial Truth.